Hello there, Ramblers, and welcome back to Reese Rambles, my weekly podcast all about the latest comings and goings, movings and shakings, and indeed all the rest of it in the worlds of vintage and retro computing, gaming, and technology. Hope you're all doing well out there. It is quite mild here in the UK this week. We've had quite a bit of rain, but no sign of snow or indeed any kind of freezing weather or anything like that. So it's not feeling particularly festive. But I am putting this out on Christmas week. You will have noticed if you are a regular to my podcast that I didn't release an episode on Friday. That was for various reasons. I was sorting out wrapping Christmas presents and stuff, which I was actually doing here in the studio, as evidenced by the mess in the background. But also because I wanted to put something out Christmas week to kind of entertain people as well, do something a bit bigger and a bit different, and that is what I am doing today. Now, I'm going to put this out as a collaboration with my main channel. So, hello, if you've come from the main channel, Control-Alt-Reese. I'm not going to be making a habit of this, but if you are at all interested in the Reese Rambles podcast, I have an episode every single week that goes out on a Friday night on YouTube, on my second channel, and also on the podcast platform. So if you want to check that out, please do. Now, finally, just to address the other elephant in the room, yes, I have a big microphone right in front of my face. Very incredibly unfortunate timing, but yeah, it's cold sore season. I have a hideous growth on my face, and I don't want to subject you to that, and quite frankly, you don't want to see that either. So yeah, hence the microphone. But this video isn't about me anyway. This is about the actual content and about the stuff that I want to shine a spotlight on and feature, because this is my videos of the year playlist. Now, every week here on Reese Rambles on my podcast, I feature at least one video of the week. And quite often they are retro and vintage computing, technology and gaming related. Quite often they aren't. Sometimes there's one, sometimes there's more than one. That's the standard intro that I usually go with. And I've decided to go through all of them, all of my episodes of Reese Rambles every single week from this year, and pick out basically all of my videos of the week. There are a few that I've skipped because they haven't aged well, or they were perhaps timely things that, the time has passed or whatever. But yeah, this is all of the videos that I recommend for this year. I've put them together in one big playlist, so you can go and check that out if you are fed up of the festive TV over this winter season. You can just stick that on in the background and have some wonderful vintage and retro tech stuff to watch, gaming stuff. And I will also say, along those lines, I don't want to steal the thunder of the Big Red Arrow Club. Now, this is Sub 5000 TV, which is something that Dudley from Yesterzine, a wonderful, fantastic YouTube channel, does put together every single year. It's a huge amount of work. It's a big collaboration between a load of smaller YouTubers. And again, if you are looking for a big playlist to stick on over Christmas and you want something that doesn't feature any kind of festive-related content at all, I'm also going to put you in the direction of Sub 5000 TV 2025 and this playlist as well. I don't think it's quite gone public yet, but it will be linked below as soon as it is ready. Now, this also features, as well as some of these YouTubers' videos and things, some little intermission bits and links and some adverts and some other kind of retro content that has been put together. Fantastic effort every single year. So yeah, please do go check that out as well. But for now, let's get on with the Reese Rambles videos of the year. I'm going to group them by month, and I'm also going to include some of my own videos as well from this year. Just a few noteworthy milestones and things. Don't want to, push them too heavily because this isn't about me, but does give me the opportunity to talk about some of my own kind of personal wins and things from 2025 as well. So with all that said, I guess we should probably get on with it. But first, a very quick thank you to our sponsor, PCBWay.com. Now, you may be familiar with PCBWay thanks to their 11 years of experience in the world of PCB fabrication, or perhaps one of their other fantastic services, which includes CNC machining, 3D printing, injection molding, and sheet metal fabrication. And they have built up quite the reputation over that time for very fast turnarounds, high quality, and competitive pricing. But today, they would like me to tell you all about their 2025 Christmas sale, which is going on now, and it finishes on the 31st of December. So you have to get in there quick if you want to grab some of these fantastic discounts, which include up to 50% off. And I don't think you can say fairer than that. So if you click through to the page using my link down in the description, you can claim these coupons, which will give you up to $200 off, depending on the value of your order. Like I say, up to 50% in total. But you got to be quick because that is only running until the end of December. So big thank you to PCBWay for all of your support for Reese Rambles and indeed my main channel, Control-Alt-Reese, in 2025 and beyond. And do check out the link down in the description. So I kicked off January here on Reese Rambles with some speedrunning, which is quite unusual for me because I don't usually watch speedrun videos, but I was very impressed with this. And I had been playing Quake, of course, the Night Dive remaster, or maybe it was Quake 2 towards the end of last year. I can't remember. But yeah, my love for Quake is timeless. And this video is called Quake Done Quickest 2. And it is the best of the Quake speedrunning community. So these are people who try to complete these games as quickly as possible. They use various shortcuts and weird ways of kind of moving around these levels. All sorts of techniques used here that I'd never seen before. And I thought it was absolutely fascinating as someone who has completed this game in various different ways over the years, but never attempted to speedrun it, I will say. Just seeing some of these levels, and some of these levels, of course, are huge and take a very long time to complete if you do them the proper way. And yet, this speedrunning community, some of these members have found ways of completing some of these in a matter of seconds, which I thought was absolutely fascinating. What I thought was particularly interesting as well was that due to the design of some of the levels, like some of these earlier levels actually take longer than the later levels, even though the later levels are much bigger, because the later levels, id Software tried to be clever with some of them and structured them in such a way that the ends were quite close to the beginnings, I guess. And it turns out you can actually just skip the entire thing. I mean, look at that, 28 seconds for level 2. So, yeah, that's Quake Done Quick, Quake Done Quickest 2. A bit unusual, and I believe the only speedrunning video that I featured in this year's Videos of the Week. But hey, something a little bit different, and I love Quake, as you know. So the next one is very much back in my ballpark, and this is a cracked 3DFX Voodoo 2 chip from a channel called Bits and Bolts. This is electronics repair right up my street, as mentioned. A bit of a longer video, 36 minutes and 56 seconds, but very much a deep dive into troubleshooting electronics repair. Some really, really kind of fine microscope work and stuff in this video that I was very impressed with. Very advanced, very much beyond my own capabilities and the stuff that I feature on my channel. And as we can see here, this 3DFX Voodoo 2 graphics card from the mid-90s has this, it has custom chips on it, of course, made by 3DFX, and one of them has a big crack across it. And this is basically an attempt to try to assess the damage internally to this custom chip, and of course repair it and get the card up and running again. And I thought it was quite the journey. You can see here this card has been very much neglected. It's got rusty ports and things on it, and has been very much abused with all sorts of broken and smashed bits on it as well. So a valiant repair attempt. Like I say, showcasing some techniques and things that I thought were very interesting indeed. And thirdly, for January, I have a documentary type video. And this is from one of my favourite channels, Retro Bytes, and it is about the Transmeta CPU, if you remember these from back in the day. And it was basically touted as this kind of reprogrammable CPU that, it was kind of flexible in its architecture and could be kind of, basically adapted to different things. They were supposed to be very, very efficient and basically never really took off and never really quite lived up to the hype. But a fascinating story behind Transmeta, behind the company behind the chip, and of course the technology that actually powered the chip itself. I thought this was a fascinating documentary type video. I can't believe it's been a whole year since I watched this, or almost a whole year. I think I'm going to have to go back and watch this one again over Christmas. It's only 22 minutes and 36 seconds, but as you will expect from Retro Bytes, really kind of densely packed with information and very, very well researched history. So a great video that. I've also just spotted that Retro Bytes is coming up on 95,000 subscribers, which is absolutely fantastic, very well deserved. Lovely guy as well. I have met him in real life a couple of times. So yeah, those 3 videos there. We've got a Quake speedrun, we've got a Voodoo 2 repair, and we've got the history of Transmeta and their wonderful CPU. And that pretty much rounds up my favourite videos of the week from January. So into February now, and a bit of a quieter month. I only released 2 rambles for various reasons, but thankfully 2 rather excellent videos of the week featured in those rambles, and also my most popular video of the year on my main channel as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. But the first video that I want to share with you now is on a channel called Matt KC Bytes. Now, Matt KC is one of my favorite YouTubers. I always watch his stuff. He's quite well known for his work reverse engineering the Lego Island series of games. And also he did a huge project getting a load of .NET-based stuff to run on Windows 95, newer Windows programs to run on Windows 95. And he did a whole project around that, which was absolutely insane, crazy amount of work, and very, very interesting stuff indeed. He's done a lot of work with the original Xbox as well. Please do go and check out his main channel, and indeed also his second channel, which is also very interesting. So this is AOL Instant Messenger, which you may remember from back in the 90s. And his basically shining a light on and giving some coverage to a project called Retro AIM Server, which is a project to reverse engineer the original AOL Instant Messenger servers, and to bring this service back from the dead, which they have done quite triumphantly, I will say. So yeah, if you go and watch this video, you will learn all about the story behind that, how it was all reverse engineered, and how those servers are now back up and running, and indeed how to set up your own AIM server if you want to get back into the world of AOL Instant Messenger 90s style. It's only a 9-minute, 13-second long video, but again, very information dense and very interesting indeed. The next video that I want to show to you from February, my second video, is from Action Retro. Now, Action Retro will feature in this playlist quite a lot. He's one of my favourite channels. I'm also a big fan of Sean as a person. He's a really lovely guy, and he's been very supportive of my stuff, as indeed I have of his. And he makes really interesting videos. He has quite an interesting and unique take on the world of retro computing. And this is a good example of the kind of stuff that he does. So this is basically again, another reverse engineering effort. And this is getting Spotify, of course, the modern music streaming platform, working on Windows XP. And this is actually a project that you can go and download and you can install on your own retro Windows XP machine. And you can play your Spotify music on your XP machine. And he shows how it all works in this video, and also where you can go and download this and get it all set up for yourself. So yeah, this is 12 minutes and 52 seconds. Love Sean's presenting style, love his editing style, love the topics that he covers on his channel. Very, very highly recommended as always. Spotify, but it's a Pentium 2. Now, the third video that I want to talk about, as mentioned, is one of mine. Shameless self-promotion time. Tripping over my words as always. And this is the one about Windows 95 beta builds. This is a 30-minute long video, and it was quite the epic putting this project together. Very, very nice to see that this got over 200,000 views, which is a lot for my channel. It's an awful lot for my channel. So thank you to everyone who checked this video out and, of course, shared it. It was shared on some of the technology sites and things as well. Got some outside interest, which is cool. And I took my beloved 486 DX4100 PC, and I went and tracked down all of the leaked Windows 95 builds from back in the day, all of the pre-release builds. There were, of course, a couple of public releases as well, but these were the ones that were sent out to internal testers, and just took a look at not only how the interface and stuff evolved over time as Microsoft were actually developing Windows 95, but also like the protection that they were trying to put in place to stop these builds leaking, because, of course, they were. Look at me, I look so young there back in February of this year. Young and fresh-faced in my old studio. But yeah, Microsoft had a huge problem with these builds being leaked on BBSs and on the internet and stuff at the time, and tried to put in various protection and stuff, which was always, of course, cracked immediately. But the interesting part is the evolution of the user interface and the start menu, of course, which we all know and love from Windows 95, which, of course, also went on to be the basis of the Windows user interface as it still stands today. So as we can see, 7 different builds, 7 different compact flash cards, just a quick run through of each one and a poke around at some of the more interesting developments as they unfolded. There's also a bit of information in here about the launch of Windows 95 and the story behind that, because it was a really, really big deal at the time as well. The 30th anniversary, of course, this year, which is kind of what this all kind of tied into. And a video that I was particularly proud of, a really big project, a really good video, and a really good response to that as well. So thank you again to everyone who checked that out. So the 3 videos for Feb, we've got AOL Instant Messenger Reborn, whatever that project was called, over on Matt Casey Bytes, if you want to go and check out AOL Instant Messenger and relive the 90s. Got Spotify running on Windows XP on a Pentium 2, courtesy of Action Retro. And also a look around those early builds of Windows 95 before it was finished and finally released to the public, courtesy of me. Into March now, and I have started dabbling with more than one video of the week in my rambles. So I have 5 for you. I guess that makes up for February, doesn't it? But yeah, I kicked off the month with this from one of my favourite channels, again, BigClive.com. Love Big Clive. Again, really lovely guy, and he makes these really interesting electronics teardown videos where he takes apart various gadgets and things. He's called out a lot of kind of scam and snake oil type devices as well over the years with his work, and yeah, really does know his electronics. Also very entertaining in some of his live streams and stuff as well. But this one specifically is about those crane grabber games that you see in the arcades. And he tears down one of these grabber claws, these crane claws, and shows how it works internally. And basically, how they diddle you, how they can be adjusted to basically tilt the odds in the favour of the operator, and how they make it so the claw doesn't always grab reliably every single time, which I'm sure is something you'll be familiar with if you've ever played any of these games. So this is Inside a Crane Claw and How the Crane Plays You. Fantastic title. 1.4 million views on this video. Very chilled out, top down, just a very simple kind of teardown type video with some very interesting insights and things from Clive, as you might expect. 7 minutes and 54 seconds. So yeah, fantastic start to March. Now, in a completely different direction again, this is Macho Nacho, another one of my favourite channels. And this is the Sega Neptune. This is a project from Kosam. Now, the Sega Neptune was a project that Sega actually announced back in the 90s to combine all of their consoles of the time. So they had the Mega Drive and they had the 32X add-on. And what they wanted to do was combine the two of those into a new 32-bit-ish Mega Drive console, which was going to be called the Neptune. And they started actually releasing information to the press at the time and photos and things of this system, but it never actually went into production. It was cancelled at the last minute. And what Kosam has done, and the rest of his group, the board folk, is to basically reverse engineer this from old photos and things and put together all of the files to allow people to be able to build their own. So if you have a broken, Sega Mega Drive, or indeed Genesis, I guess, if you are in one of those parts of the world, and a 32X, and you can rescue the custom chips from those, you can transplant them onto this brand new motherboard, and you can install that inside a brand new case, and you can essentially have your very own Sega Neptune unreleased console. But if you don't want to go to all of that effort, you can watch Macho Nacho's excellent video all about it. 27 minutes and 36 seconds. Great project, great video, and also some great people involved again. So the next video I have for you is something ever so slightly different again from another one of my favourite channels. Oh, this is a photography channel. So it's a channel called Snappiness, and if you're interested at all in old cameras and even like digital photography stuff, it covers all sorts of photography related stuff. Again, really, really well made, well put together videos. And what he has done is basically acquired an old Kodak photo printing booth, the ones that you see in supermarkets and things. And he tears it down and tries to work out how it all works. He's not from a computing background or an electronics background. He is very much a photographer, but does a rather admirable job, I will say, of taking this thing apart and trying to put it back together again in some kind of working fashion, while explaining how it all works along the way, how these instant photo prints and these booths work, which I thought was really interesting. You've got different types of printers in there. There's a scanner in there. Of course, you've got all the software side of it as well, the PC-driven side, and a bit of information on the history of photo printing as well. So I thought this was a particularly interesting video. Great device, a great bit of machinery, of course, something that you will have seen on a fairly regular basis. You still see them in shops today. And so that's snappiness. A 14-minute, 33-second video all about a photo printer from Kodak called the Kodak Picture Maker. And if nothing else, hey, it's got an old PC inside it, so it should be of interest to us as well. Next video is Why Young People Love Old Things from Genuine Curiosity. This is 9 minutes long, 9 minutes and 7 seconds, and it's about this analog revival, which seems to be ongoing. And actually, from what I've seen, it seems to be gathering quite some pace as well. I'm seeing a lot of stuff from younger people talking about how they're going to try to use these analog devices a lot more in their day-to-day life in 2026. So stuff like record players and film cameras and all of that stuff. I think it started off as a bit of a kind of hipster movement type thing, I think it's fair to say, but actually people are starting to appreciate this stuff quite unironically now. And the simpler times, the times that I grew up with, certainly back in the late 80s, early 90s, before smart devices and whatnot. And nice to see younger people, such as this chap here. Haven't made a note of his name. But yeah, it's nice to see them embracing and loving this older technology. And I thought it was quite a nice, just quite a nice message, and quite a nice thing to aspire to. And just wanted to draw attention to what was quite a small channel at the time, but it seems this video did end up blowing up. 971,000 views. He now has 29.4 thousand subscribers. So, good on you, Genuine Curiosity. Good work. And finally, I have for you this video from March, although this was released in February by the looks of it, from Michael MJD, which is another channel which you will see featured a fair bit in this playlist. Another one of my favourite channels. And this is a look at the One-Core API, which is an open source compatibility layer, essentially, that allows new applications, new current Windows applications, to run on Windows XP. Kind of in the same vein of as the Spotify running on XP that we took a look at from Action Retro last month. But this is supposedly universal and does allow pretty much all modern apps to run on XP. Apparently, that is what they are aspiring to, and that is what they are working towards. But as you'll see in this video, not quite fully polished and fully featured as of yet. But hey, that was back in February, so perhaps that things have improved a lot since then. I must admit, I haven't been back and checked out this project, but that's part of the reason I'm putting this video together, to remind me of all of these projects that I've looked at over the course of the year that have taken my interest that might be worth another look. So that's Michael MJD running modern apps on Windows XP with the One-Core API. 23 minutes, 27 seconds. Just weird to see some of this modern stuff running on XP. Of course, after March comes April, as you might expect, and I have 7 videos for you for this month, in addition to one of my own, which I will talk about in a second, one of my biggest videos of the year. But first up, I want to talk about the retro future, about Elliot Cole, one of my favourite people. He's a lovely chap. He bought a house and tried to restore that and got screwed over by his builders and ended up having to sell that and lost a load of money, quite sadly. He was also restoring a motorbike which was stolen and set fire to on the beach, so he's not had the greatest run of luck, I will say, poor old Elliot. But over the years, of course, he has featured some rather wonderful things on his channel. Some Nintendo handhelds, stuff like Game Boy mods, and a bit of history about some of the limited edition Game Boys and Nintendo DSs and things like that. And in this video, he tackles the restoration of a Game Boy kiosk, so one of the shop demo kiosks that we used to see. I remember seeing these as I was a kid, when I was a kid. And he, is the first to admit in this video that he's never tackled anything like this before, has to learn some new techniques and things, works with a woodworker and stuff, a carpenter, to get this kiosk all fixed up. And also designs some reproduction labels and things like that for it as well, and shows that process as well. Really involved restoration project. Cool to see him learning all these new skills and kind of taking us along on those on that journey as well, and showing us some of those skills. I mean, look, lockpicking as well. Had to learn lockpicking so he could break into this because he didn't have the keys for it. So yeah, very cool video, 31 minutes and 14 seconds. This is an abandoned Game Boy kiosk restoration from the retro future. Now next up, it's Michael MJD again, the channel that I just talked about, running that modern stuff on Windows XP. And in this one, he is looking at another weird and wonderful OS, which is something that he does quite a lot on his channel. And this is called Visopsys. Now, the cool thing about this is it is a full-blown operating system in its own right that does run on modern-ish hardware. And it's not Linux-based. It's something that's been written from the ground up, has its own applications and things, its own kind of ecosystem. And I just love looking at this weird and wonderful stuff like this. I'd love to have a poke around some of this stuff on my own channel, but it's just so time-consuming, and there are already people out there like Michael, doing a fantastic job of it. So this is exploring an operating system called Visopsys, another non-Linux OS. And 7 months ago on his channel, 188,000 views. So quite a popular video, that, and deservedly so, because it's a very weird looking thing. Now, next up, another big channel that you may be familiar with. This is LGR. That's right. And of course, I did mention that I would give some of these smaller guys a bit of a leg up in this video. And this was a bit of a departure again for Clint. In the midst of him, again, his house got destroyed in a storm and stuff. It's not been a great year for YouTubers, I guess. But this was very much as he was in the process of rebuilding and was trying some new things to keep the ball rolling on his channel. And he did this reaction type video of Comdex 1994. Which was a big computer show, which was featured on a computing TV show at the time called The Computer Chronicles. And this is Clint's take on Comdex 94, just reacting to some of the technology and some of the vendors and things that were being shown in this video at this show. And of course, Clint's very well educated on this subject. He knows all about this retro computing stuff, as you might expect. And I found his insights very interesting. Not the style of video that I would expect from him at all, but very welcome and indeed very well received by his community, and it has led to him making a few more of these, which I think are always a really interesting watch. So a bit of a milestone there as well. But yeah, Comdex 94, 35 minutes and 40 seconds, Clint's take on that. So that is that. Next up, we have what happened to Cool Tech. Now, this is Chon Digital, which isn't a channel that I'd come across before. I think it's quite a young person's channel, based on the style of the editing and stuff, a bit different to some of the other stuff that I featured. Chap here looking very much like a young Dave Grohl as well, presenting this. But this is another one of these young people embracing analog, well, I say analog technology, I mean like older technology. And basically lamenting, the death of the kind of offline world. We've got all this always online stuff, DRM, stuff like that. And he just goes back to stuff like the original iPod and cartridge-based consoles like the N64 and that kind of thing. And just talks about what we've lost in the modern world, which has been a bit of a recurring theme for me as well over the course of this year. And does seem to be becoming quite a big thing, as mentioned, going into 2026 for quite a lot of people as well. So I thought that was worth highlighting again this month. How we came to hate technology. I like the editing style in this. Of course, it was a bit all over the place, a bit frantic, but I do enjoy that kind of video from time to time. And quite an important message as well, I think, about technology and how it has come to serve the big corporations rather than the individual users. There's the hippie in me saying that. But yeah, how we come to hate old technology, 15 minutes and 7 seconds from a channel called Chon Digital, which I don't think I've checked out before or since, but still a very interesting video and part of the playlist. Next one was Action Retro, again, Sean, and he was checking out a Linux distro in this that I hadn't actually come across up to this point. So this is MX Linux, which is a very lightweight Linux distro for older machines. And the reason this video was of particular interest to me was because I just got my hands on one of these first-gen Intel MacBook Airs. I use an M1 MacBook Air as my main machine, my day job machine, and for all my YouTube stuff, editing all my videos, and for making these podcasts and things as well. And so I was interested to see the first-gen one and to get my hands on one myself and to try to explore some opportunities for things that I could do with that. I will also say that I got that from Keith from the channel Yawning Angel. He actually very kindly sold that to me at a very reasonable price, so thank you to I always want to give him a shout out as well because he's a lovely chap. But yeah, I don't know, just seeing because of course this stuff hasn't been supported by Apple for quite a long time now in the mainstream macOS modern releases. And that is something that I will touch on with one of my own videos in a second as well. I did quite a big video along these lines this month. But yeah, it just goes to show that you can install Linux on this older hardware. 4 gigabytes of RAM in these old MacBooks. Can't run anything modern at all. And yet you stick MX Linux on it and you can watch YouTube and you can do all sorts of, all your usual day-to-day stuff on there. Your web browsing and your office type stuff. Why not? I'm a huge fan of saving this old e-waste, obsolete hardware, running modern Linux distros on there, and giving them a new lease of life, which again is another one of these recurring themes for this year, and will be a big theme for me as well on Control-Alt-Reese in 2026. So that's the best Linux for low-end Macs from Action Retro, MX Linux on a first-gen Intel MacBook Air, 10 minutes and 35 seconds. Next video for you is LGR again, and I'll just very briefly mention this one. He's got the Ryzen 9800X3D, he's got the Fractal North case. This is a modern PC build, something that I know very little about. I'm very old school when it comes to PCs. I do have a modern gaming PC, and the reason this caught my attention was because this is the case that I have, the Fractal North. And this is, I also upgraded to the 9800X3D CPU as well, inspired by this video. Clint does also talk a little bit about how his old PC was trashed. Here's some of the footage of his house and how that was destroyed in that rather crazy hurricane towards the end of last year, I believe. But yeah, it's just a nice chilled video. Clint, again, building something and building something modern as well, which is a bit of a departure for his channel and a bit of a departure for the kind of stuff that I tend to watch. So I thought it was quite interesting. 39 minutes and 56 seconds, so a longer video again, but a very interesting one. And next up, finally, something a bit different, a bit of a game modding video. And this is a bit of Valve history as well. So if you remember Portal, back in the day, fantastic puzzle game from Valve, of course, firing the portals and solving the puzzles and things, first-person puzzle game. And if you don't know the story behind Portal, it basically started life as a student project called Narbacular Drop, and Valve actually took the team on board that had made this game and gave them all the support that they needed to flesh it out and turn it into what became Portal. But some of those early concepts were visible, they were obvious in Narbacular Drop, particularly the portals themselves, and all in there and fully functional and working, and the whole puzzle solving element as well. And what Portal Runner has done here is to basically take the assets from Portal 2 and adapt them to work in the original Narbacular Drop engine. So the original prototype that later became Portal, and basically backported all of the features and things, at least to the best of their ability, to the original version of that game. So a really fascinating insight. Not only the history behind Portal and the story of how the game became what it eventually was in the end, and a bit of a look at Narbacular Drop, which I don't think a lot of people will have actually played and had any hands-on experience with. But also, a rather Herculean reverse engineering attempt as well. So very cool project and a very cool video from Portal Runner. I backported Portal 2 to Portal's prototype, 20 minutes and 39 seconds. And finally, a video from me, from Control-Alt-Reese for April. And this is my video all about OCLP, the Open Core Legacy Patcher. Now, this is a project that's been around for a very long time. And as mentioned, this is all about running modern versions of macOS on older hardware. Now, I'd already done a couple of videos with this Intel Mac Pro, including a teardown and installing Windows 11 on it. It's a dual Xeon system. It's a ridiculously high spec. I've still got it. In fact, I'm sitting looking at it now the other side of the room. I love it. It's one of my favorite machines that I have. And I certainly have some quite big projects planned for that for 2026 as well. But this was, this was Open Core Legacy Patcher, which is something that I've been wanting to check out for the longest time, because this machine is 17, 18 years old this year, hasn't been supported by Apple for a very long time now. And yet you can run the current releases of macOS on it quite happily using Open Core Legacy Patcher, which is a third-party open source, an open source project. So I show a little bit how that works and also how some of these modern versions of macOS run on such old hardware. So that's the Mac Pro 3.1. from 2008, I believe. 167,000 views, which is a huge video for my channel. I also got a very interesting email off the back of this one as well, from someone who basically, they were arguing with the thumbnail. So let me just pause this video and refresh it for you. Just a bit of an anecdote for you and a bit of an insight into what it's like to run a YouTube channel. So I did an A/B test on this. So we have this feature where we can make multiple thumbnails for a video, and YouTube will serve up different versions to different people. And I made this one as a bit of a joke with a kind of angry-looking Tim Cook, of course, the CEO of Apple at the moment, with the title "Don't Tell Apple." And someone actually emailed me with quite an abusive email. I've not got it here, but basically calling me an idiot for assuming that Apple wouldn't know that OCLP existed. And I can only assume that they were arguing with this thumbnail for some bizarre reason. Why they bothered to go to the effort of sending me an email, I have no idea. And they'd also used the Apple Mail anonymizing feature thing as well to hide their address. Do people not have anything better to do? Anyway, let's leave that in the past and move on to May. Now, May was a very big month indeed, with 8 videos of the week featured across the course of the month. Actually, there were a couple more than that, but I have removed a couple from this list. Stuff like the GTA 6 trailer, which is, hey, if you're interested in that, you've probably seen that by now, and I don't really have anything interesting to add. But yeah, 8 videos. And I couldn't thin this out, to be honest, so we're just going to have to rattle through all of these. And just as a reminder, there is a playlist of all of my videos of the year 2025 featured down in the description if you want to stick that playlist on and watch your way through all of these fantastic videos. But first up for you, I have Rob Smith Dev. Rob Smith, the wonderful. If you're not subscribed to his channel, please do go and subscribe. He builds all sorts of fascinating stuff, 3D printing, programming, electronics, he does it all. Of course, I was quite famously stationed next to him at the Kickstart Amiga show where he had his disco floppy disk cleaning machine, which absolutely drove me mad over the course of the weekend. But we have become good friends, partly off the back of that. But I did know him before. But I think we did bond over that shared traumatic experience. But yeah, this was one of his projects from this year. I think I do feature a couple of others as well in this playlist. But this is a floppy disk whack-a-mole type game. So we'll just fast forward a little bit. But as per Rob's videos, as you might expect, he goes into great detail about how he's designed and built and prototyped all of this and the various stages that he goes through to get all of these projects up and running. And absolutely fascinating. Again, I love watching people who are much, much smarter than me. Not that that's a particularly high bar, but, people with all these electronics and mechanical skills, design skills and stuff. I am in awe of all of this stuff that goes into these projects. And evidently, Rob puts a lot of work into these contraptions that he builds. This is building my latest crazy invention, and it's one of his toys, which if you've been to any shows this year and Rob has been there, you may have seen this thing in action. He very much likes people to get hands-on with his inventions, and usually madness ensues. So yeah, 13 minutes and 52, but absolutely packed with information about how he has designed and built this rather cool floppy disk-based game. But moving on, another video from LGR, again from Clint. And I don't like to feature these huge channels too much. Of course, they're more than capable of getting plenty of views on their own. And to be honest, the people that watch my stuff probably are more than familiar with LGR's work, with Clint's stuff. But this one was a particular standout video, I will say, because this is all about Magic Eye images. If you remember those from back in the day, they kind of had a big moment back in the 90s. These pictures that you kind of have to cross your eyes and kind of stare through to see. And then like a 3D image pops out of the page. For some reason, they were only around for a few years, and now they don't seem to be popular at all anymore, which is a bit odd. But anyway, I am one of the few people, well, I say one of the few people, one of the lucky people, I will say, who can pretty much get all of these pretty much instantly. And I don't know how I do it. I just look at them and the thing pops out and it just works. And I know there's some rather unfortunate people out there who just can't get them at all. But Clint does a great job of explaining how these images work, and also demoing some software that was available at the time for actually creating your own Magic Eye 3D images. But as you might expect from LGR, The really interesting part of this video is him just looking into the history of the company behind this and the story of how these were invented and how they were kind of refined and marketed and how they were kind of later on released so people could make their own using this software. And just all the history behind it and stuff like that, which, you know, I remember these things from back in the day. I thought they were quite interesting. I still actually think they're quite cool because I am a big kid. And to hear the story behind them and how they all work, and also to see Clint having a crack at making his own, I thought was a very interesting video. So that is 21 minutes, 55 seconds, how 1990s Magic Eye 3D images were made. And some examples of them in the wild as well, I will say. But yeah, we'll move on very quickly from that to the next one. Pardon me. And this is Chris Spargo, who has had a rather big year this year. People are calling him the new Tom Scott. Of course, Tom Scott travelling around the world, telling all these fascinating stories about all these interesting places. And he's very much making videos in the same style. And this was the first of his videos that I covered on my channel. And this is to do with barcodes and EAN numbers particularly. And if you scan them with a barcode scanner, they have the country of origin as part of the barcode. But he noticed that if you scan books, they all have the same country of origin, and it's not a real country. It's a place called Bookland, and he did a real deep dive and a real kind of investigation into what Bookland actually is and why it was invented and why it features on all of these barcodes. And it's not the kind of thing, you try to explain it to someone, it doesn't sound interesting at all, but actually, it's a really interesting story, and that kind of sums up all of his stuff and, of course, all of Tom Scott's stuff, who came before him as well. Tom Scott has officially gone into retirement now, so we were just waiting for someone else to step up to the plate, and it seems that Chris Spargo has very happily filled that role. Still at it, still releasing some very interesting videos, and there will be some others as well on this playlist. But that's Why Does Every Book Come From the Same Country? It's 4 minutes and 2 seconds. Another thing I love about Chris's videos is they're all very, very short and very concise and very interesting. So yeah, Chris Spargo with Why Does Every Book Come From the Same Country? Now something completely different again for the next one. And this is the story of Lemmings. Of course, a huge game in the 90s. DMA Design went on to become Rockstar and make Grand Theft Auto, of course, quite famously. This is a video from Modern Vintage Gamer, MVG, of course, Demetrius. A really big channel, big fan of his stuff as well, and one that I've been watching for years. But yeah, just an interesting little documentary, only 16 minutes and 11 seconds worth, just talking a bit about the history of Psygnosis, the company that published Lemmings, the story behind them and some of their other games, and how Lemmings itself came about as a game. A great little video, not really much else to say on that, other than go and watch it. It's part of the playlist. Next up is a hardware review from More Fun Making It, my very good friend Lee. And Lee was actually one of the first, if not the first people to get his hands on the new Mr. Multisystem 2. And I've talked at length about FPGA-based systems this year on Reese Rambles, about the field programmable gate array, of course, how it can emulate or simulate or recreate, however you want to word it. There's a big debate about that. Any of these old chips and things from the past, which allows a very, very accurate way to kind of recreate these old systems and experience this old software on something that is a very, very close approximation of the original hardware. So I'm a big fan of FPGAs. I'm a big fan of the original Mr. Multisystem. I still use mine all the time to play all these old games and things. And Lee had zero experience whatsoever, so he was a great person to check out the new version, the new Mr. Multisystem 2, which is from Heber. I will say, just in the interest of full disclosure, that the guys down at Heber are good personal friends of mine as well. But yeah, it's a great product, not one that I bought myself because I'm so happy with the original version that I didn't really see much point in upgrading to the new version. But hey, if you're looking to get into the world of Mr. and FPGA, this is a great intro to it from someone very much learning himself. And a great bit of hardware as well to serve as an introduction to that. So this is the Mr. Multisystem 2. Now we can all FPGA from More Fun Making It. Lee, bloody lovely chap. It's 21 minutes and 51 seconds. Just a great hardware review and overview. A bit of information about FPGA and about Mr. My next video for May, are we on May? I think we're on May, is from Matt KC, a channel I mentioned before, and I talked a bit about his efforts reverse engineering Lego Island and how that was kind of the thing that he was the best known for. And he is this is one of his main channel videos, so he does actually appear in this. And it's about a group that he was a part of that have reverse engineered this obscure, I say obscure, I think it was actually quite big, but this Lego game from the 90s that doesn't run on modern operating systems. It has all sorts of glitches and bugs and things if you try to run it on modern Windows. And it's just a weird open world Lego based, I want to say like GTA type game. I mean, it's not really, but if you're not familiar with Lego Island, it's also a great introduction to the game itself. He's done a bit of a series on this game, but this was kind of the culmination of all of that work of trying to reverse engineer this and build a new modern engine for it so people could actually play it on modern Windows. So we finished decompiling Lego Island. It's 39 minutes and 13 seconds long. And yes, you can actually go and download the fruits of their labours. Go away, Firefox, I don't want to update you right now. Download the fruits of their labours and actually run this for yourself as well. If you want to play Lego Island, perhaps if you remember it from in the 90s, or maybe if you've never played it, and this is your first experience of the game and your first opportunity to check it out. Definitely a very good way to go about that. And indeed, they also had some contact with Lego, who apparently lost the original source code, or they were being difficult. I can't quite remember the story, but the Lego were also interested in this. So perhaps, there might be some kind of official release or something at some point in the future. I'm not quite sure, but fascinating story. That is that, 39 minutes and 13 seconds, bit of a longer documentary type video with loads of in-depth technical information, all about reverse engineering and how that all works and the particular methods that they used in this project. So, this one, bit of a different channel. This was a new channel that I discovered this year as well. I watched this guy's stuff over on Instagram mainly, oddly enough. And this is Joseph's Machines. Huge mainstream channel. Again, a guy building contraptions. I do like contraptions, real life stuff, And this is his attempt to recreate the Wallace and Gromit breakfast machine. So the bed that basically chucks you out of bed, chucks Wallace out of bed quite famously. Was it The Wrong Trousers? Yeah, it was The Wrong Trousers. And drops him at his breakfast table and then dresses him and, makes his breakfast for him, does the whole jam on toast thing. And Joseph creates his own version in real life. It's a really cool thing, very massively over-engineered and complicated thing. All sorts of testing and prototyping and stuff going into this. I think it's a great build. Not a channel that I usually watch, although, like I say, I do quite often see his stuff come up on Instagram. But, just do something a little bit different, I think. And, I just love to see people building stuff, real-world engineering stuff. So I made a Wallace and Gromit contraption in real life from Joseph's Machines, 9 minutes and 34 seconds. Do go and check that out. And finally, my final video for May of 2025, again going back to the gaming stuff. We're going to jump around all over the place in this list, is a channel called Radiation Hazard, and they cover all sorts of Half-Life lore, all sorts of, poking around Half-Life and indeed Half-Life 2 and whatnot, picking the games apart, talking about the history of those games and how they were developed and, the stories behind them and stuff. But this is a look at a fan-made mod, and it is a huge mod for the original Half-Life, called Half-Life Extended. And what this does is takes all of the original levels and just bulks them out and just adds a load of extra stuff to them, a load of extra detail, some extra areas and things. But it is all very much in the kind of spirit of those original level designs, and perhaps what Valve would have built if computers had had the resources at the time to be able to handle all this extra detail and all these extra bits and bobs. I did tell myself at the time that I would check this out for myself. And as you might expect, I didn't find the time to do that. So, at least I got to watch the video about it. To be honest, I think I've resigned myself to the fact that this is all I'm going to see of this. But still a great way to experience this mod and hear a bit about the story behind it. 17 minutes and 40 seconds long, and it's just a really interesting take on a game that I think a lot of us know inside and out, are intimately familiar with. Just quite interesting to see somebody else's vision of this and how this game could have come together had things worked out slightly differently back in the day. Very highly regarded mod and a very good video explaining what it's all about. So there you go. That's May. I guess we better move on to June. Bit of a quieter month, June, thankfully, with 5 videos featured as my videos of the week here on Reese Rambles. And I also had a very big video again over on my main channel, Control.Reese, which I do want to talk about again just for a second, if you will indulge me for a moment. But first up, we have a video from Civi11. Now, just to introduce his channel, he covers all sorts of first-person shooters, so huge fan of games like Duke Nukem 3D and Doom and Rise of the Triad, all those classic 90s shooters. And he also likes to cover very janky games that perhaps are not at all well known in that genre. And this very much falls into that latter category. So this is a game called Mars, which I wasn't familiar with at all. I love watching his videos on some of these. And it's basically, it's a knockoff of Duke Nukem 3D with a load of ripped off assets from all sorts of other games kind of shoehorned in here. A bit of an incoherent offering, although perhaps one of the better ones that he has featured on his channel. But a good example of what Civi11 does on his channel, and if you are a fan of those 90s shooters, I think it is always a very interesting watch. So this is called The Martian Job. 25 minutes and 9 seconds, which actually for one of his rants is one of the shorter ones. And just a look at a really weird game, which thankfully saves us the pain of having to play it for ourselves. So that's Civi. Next up, this is Clint again from LGR, although this is his second channel. And I wanted to talk a bit about this one again, because really interesting little book about the weird artwork that we used to have on graphics cards. I don't think it's quite so prevalent now. But yeah, in the 90s and the early 2000s, some of these, early GeForce cards and stuff like that, the box art was quite weird and wonderful. And also the manuals and things as well, with these gremlins and goblins and sexy fairies and all sorts of stuff. And we just kind of accepted it as being perfectly normal. And yeah, this was a bit of a Kickstarter that happened this year. A group of people put together this book, and basically they went out and sourced a load of the artwork from these graphics cards and put them together in a little coffee table book called Overclocked. And this is Clint's quick flick through that book and a look at some of those examples of some of those bits of artwork. So it's called Overclocked, an archive of graphics card box art, and it's 10 minutes and 19 seconds. And again, as you would expect from Clint, a bit of a laid back, just poke around at something quite interesting in his unique style. However, the next video is something again completely different. And this is from the BBC Archive, and it is a look at Ocean Software, essentially, the inner workings of Imagine an Ocean Software in 1984, which was the year that I was born, coincidentally. So I always like looking at stuff from around this era. And it was a documentary, it was a period documentary that was actually made at the time. And part of their Commercial Breaks series, which, as far as I'm aware, isn't on anymore. But really interesting insight into the game industry at the time and how games were developed and how these companies were run. And it's just a great thing to sit down and watch and actually kind of, stick on your TV and watch properly and pay your full attention to. Some of this great old hardware in here. I mean, we've seen the Dragon 32 just there. The Commodore 64 popped up a second ago. There's some Spectrum action and stuff as well. And yeah, 28 minutes and 56 seconds. So it is a full-blown TV documentary. But if you are at all interested in how the world of British game development worked at the time, this is it. 1984, Bandersnatch, Bailiffs and the Battle for a Hit Game from Commercial Breaks, 1984. I believe this was Christmas 1984. Features the inner workings of Imagine Ocean Software. And yeah, over on the BBC Archive YouTube channel, part of the playlist of videos of the year 2025. The next one is Simone Yetch. I always worry that I'm not saying her name properly, but another fantastic maker. But this isn't actually a video on her channel. This is one of my other favourite channels, Gerald Undone, who does behind-the-scenes looks at YouTubers' studios. So he actually visited Simone's studio and talks a bit with her about her setup, her filming setup, how she's kind of built this custom studio, and some of her kind of videos and things and how they all fit in, and taking a look at some of her projects that she has strewn about the studio on display, as you do. I love seeing behind the scenes of YouTubers' setups, particularly when they are my favourite YouTubers. and also, taking an opportunity to kind of revisit some of their projects and things as well. So this is Gerald Undone, Simone Yetch Exposed, sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, Simone, studio tour and behind the scenes. It's 19 minutes and 47 seconds, and I will say, while you're over there, please do check out the rest of Gerald's channel if you do find this interesting, because he does tours of all sorts of big YouTubers and all of their studios. I love his style. He's a very entertaining guy. He's a very good interviewer, and keeps everything light and a lot of fun as well. So cool video that. And finally, before we get on to my video from June, was it June we're on? It is, isn't it? This one is completely different. This was a news segment, and this isn't related to anything that I do at all. No retro tech involved. No, I guess there's a CRT TV and an original PlayStation, I think, does feature quite briefly at one point. But I just thought this was really interesting. This is from PBS in Rhode Island in New York. And it's about an old shopping mall and an apartment that some people, like they built this secret apartment inside this mall in like a dead space in this mall. And they managed to like break in and get access to this. And there were people living in there. And they, like I say, they had a games console set up and a TV and stuff. And they had, furniture and everything. Managed to escape the detection of the security guards for the longest time as well. And this has become a bit of an urban legend and a bit of one of those internet legends thing. I mean, you can see the apartment here. It's quite well equipped. I think quite nice by New York standards. And it was just this group of kids that just built this thing, and a really interesting look at how they got in there, how they built this thing. Interviews with the people that were involved in the building of this secret hidden underground apartment. And this building has since been demolished as well. So a bit of a time capsule as well, kind of an insight into a period of history that has now come to an end. So something a little bit different to the usual retro computing and gaming stuff, but I love little interesting stories and tidbits like this from the local news. And yeah, there was an indie film about this as well, about this apartment, which is mentioned in this news story. So there you go, that's a sneak peek inside the secret mall apartment from Rhode Island PBS Weekly. 9 minutes and 41 seconds, one of those weird, interesting internet videos that I always find myself obsessing over a little bit. But, of course, I had another big video in June, and I promise there's not all that many more of these. I seem to have peaked and fizzled out, unfortunately, towards the second half of the year, but 260,000 views. Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? And this was my first look and my first hands-on with Bazite, which is a SteamOS Linux-based operating system designed for gaming, and it is built on top of Fedora. So what they've done is they've taken Fedora as a base and taken the SteamOS stuff from the Steam Deck, of course developed by Valve, and basically, stuck all of that on top of Fedora and put that out there as their own Linux distribution called Bazite. And this is really catching on in a big way, and quite rightly so. I actually use this on my main gaming PC at home now. And it runs all of the Windows games and things, even like brand new Windows games as they're released, run fantastically well under this Linux distribution called Bazite, thanks to Valve's Proton compatibility layer. And yeah, this was just me kind of checking it out for the first time and seeing what it was all about. And it seems this really caught a lot of people's imagination. This video was pushed quite widely by YouTube and by some other websites. And I think it's actually quite a nice, in hindsight, quite a nice introduction to Bazite and what it's all about. Taking people on that journey with me, learning about something new. And, as someone who's been into Linux for a very long time, 25 plus years, it's quite nice to see it finally kind of being accepted in a more mainstream way, perhaps finally the year of Linux on the desktop. Of course, Windows very much going the way that it is with all the AI stuff and everything else, which is kind of driving people away. Very similar situation with modern day macOS, although perhaps not quite as bad as Windows, I will say. And people out there looking for alternatives, particularly gamers. And finally, people discovering that, you can actually run Windows stuff on Linux with no problems at all. And quite often it runs better than it does on Windows on the same hardware, which is utterly bizarre to me. But there you go. Just wanted to highlight that video. Will also be part of the playlist as well. Bazite, the gaming OS Microsoft doesn't want you to know about. And I kind of show what it's all about, tell the story behind it, and show some games running on it. 37 minutes and 49 seconds, so it is a longer video on my channel. But very much a journey that I enjoyed, and also one that people enjoyed coming on with me. Thankfully, it would appear that July, at least, was a bit of a quieter month for me as far as YouTube viewing was concerned, because I only had 5 videos to recommend in this month, although we do see the very first shout out in this episode for the Doom Shrine, my collection of Doom-related paraphernalia, which does get a shout out in every single episode of Reese Rambles when I invariably cover Doom-related stories. But not all that many Doom-related videos of the week, I will say. But we're going to start off with a rare exception. So this is a channel called Icarus Lives, and it is a WOD for Doom, a collection of levels known as My Doom Shrunk in the Wash. Now, this is part of a bigger project called Ramp 2025, which brings together all of these really awesome collections of levels, these new episodes, from some very, very talented members of the Doom modding community, and brings them together into this big gallery type setup that you can wander around and you can choose which episodes you want to play by walking through these teleporters. It's really cool. It is shown in this video how it all works. But this is very much focused on one of those, which is called My Doom Shrunk in the Wash, as mentioned. So the concept behind this, if you are intimately familiar with the first episode of Doom, as I am, here's the gallery thing, by the way. If you're watching this on YouTube, this is the very cool interface that they built that allows you to wander around and choose from all of these different creations. Very, very worth checking out, I will say. But yeah, the concept behind My Doom Shrunk in the Wash specifically is that essentially what someone has done has taken the first episode of Doom, that first shareware episode that I mentioned, and shrunk everything down and made it as physically tiny as they possibly can, while still being recognizable as those original levels. So if you do know that episode, you will recognize pretty much all of the various bits, the different set pieces and things from this. They're just really tiny. And I think this has taken a huge amount of creativity. It's a very, very clever concept, and it looks a load of fun to play as well. So cool video this that just covers all of this and explains the story behind it and, of course, the wider Ramp project that it is a part of. It's only 6 minutes, 39 seconds on a channel called Icarus Lives, which I wasn't subscribed to before, but I very much am now. And yeah, I mean, look at it. If nothing else, it's very cute. But next up, I have a hardware project, and something that I have covered on my channel myself on Control-Alt-Reese this year, but not this specific aspect of it, because this is the Pico Gus. Now, the Pico Gus is an 8-bit ISA card that features a Raspberry Pi Pico, RP2040, I believe, microcontroller. And it was originally designed to emulate all sorts of sound cards from the past. So if you have one of these older machines, you can slap your Pico Gus into it, and you can hear what an Adlib card or a Sound Blaster card, or even the Gus, of course, the Gravis Ultrasound that gives the Pico Gus its name. And it's all done in software emulation running on the Raspberry Pi Pico, but it is very, very accurate, and it is also very compatible with those older DOS games as well. So really cool project, one that I'm a huge supporter of and like to give a lot of coverage to. Ian, the guy behind it, is a really nice chap as well. But this is, I was in the middle of various other projects and things at the time, and I didn't cover the CD-ROM emulation when that was launched. And thankfully, vSwitch Zero did indeed step up to the plate and put together a very good video showing what this was all about and how it all works. Because, of course, optical drive emulation, optical drives getting less and less reliable as time goes on. They're needing belt replacements and new laser modules and stuff like that. And a really important part of the experience of those kind of older computers, I think, those older PCs. So very useful to have quite a low cost and accessible way of emulating these, I think. That, of course, you can emulate them in software and stuff, but on these much older PCs, you need to free up all the resources you can. So cool to have a dedicated piece of hardware that can do this. And this also led to the Pico IDE, which was a spin-off project from this as well, which is kind of exclusively designed around emulating those drives, but it's very much started as an add-on for the Pico Gus. And if you own a Pico Gus, you can download the firmware and try it for yourself. And if you don't own a Pico Gus, they are very inexpensive to pick up because it's all open source. So very cool project, one that I am a huge supporter of, and a great video from vSwitch Zero just covering that optical drive emulation feature that was released earlier this year. But moving on, One thing that has been quite big news this year is Steam, of course. SteamOS, Bazzite, which I already talked about, based on the work that Valve did on the Steam Deck, that handheld Linux-based console. But Valve originally had this vision of Steam machines, which were going to be made by third-party hardware partners. And this was announced all the way back in 2012. And they had a reference design, which they announced to the press and showed off. And it all kind of fizzled out. Of course, oddly enough, coincidentally, after this video went out, Valve did announce that they are going to be making their very own Steam machine finally next year. They're actually going to be releasing the physical hardware, of course, built off the success of the Steam Deck, their handheld. But what Tech by Matt has done in this video is take that original Steam machine concept from 2012 and turn it into a physical thing using 3D printing, of course. So you can actually go and download the files for this and you can make your own 3D printed 2012 spec Steam machine with its own ITX internals and experience what that was all about back in the day and what Valve's original vision for the Steam machine was supposed to be, which has become all the more relevant, I think, since Valve's recent announcement of the actual new generation of Steam machines coming out next year. But very cool, you know, I don't think I've ever seen a fully 3D printed PC case before, and it just all came together very nicely, and I thought it was a very cool hardware project, as well as learning a bit about the history behind the Steam machines as well. So that's Tech by Matt, 17 minutes, 25 seconds. I built a custom Steam machine in 2025. Now, next up, this was related to a story that was part of the that particular week's Ramble. And I featured the BBC docudrama, comedy, whatever you want to call it, from 2009 called Micromen, which is... it's a dramatisation, although it is actually quite well rooted in real events. Doesn't stray all that far from the actual real events of the story, and it's all to do with the rivalry between Acorn and Sinclair at the time, back in the 1980s. So features Sir Clive Sinclair himself. Well, all right, not it's Alexander Armstrong with a weird haircut. Also features Martin Freeman as well, and it is a comedy, like I say, although it is like I say, it is quite historically accurate as well. Really bizarre bit of British filmmaking. I don't know if it's been shown on TV. It doesn't seem to be since its original broadcast in 2009. I don't think it's available on any of the streaming platforms. I have no idea how it's survived on YouTube for this long. It's been on here for 12 years. Obviously a very much unauthorized upload of this full thing. But I think it is very well worth a watch if you're interested at all in the British computer industry, or indeed bizarre, surreal British humour. We've got some household name comedians in here as well, and just a really well-made thing, as you might expect from the BBC. Just bizarre viewing all round. Of course, it is quite a bit longer. I have also added it to the playlist, although it is an hour and 24 minutes long, probably worth a watch in its own right. But that is Micromen. And if you're not familiar with it, you are very much in for a treat. And finally, also SteamOS, a bit of a recurring theme for this year. Here is a video from another of my favourite channels, Random Gaming in HD. I watch all of his stuff pretty much religiously. Very much got into his channel in a big way, actually, this year. And this kind of builds on the stuff that I've covered on my own channel about Bazzite and about SteamOS, because there are various Windows games that are notoriously badly optimized and run very poorly, even when they were new, even on very well-spec machines on Windows. One of them being GTA 4, which is covered quite extensively in this video, but there are a couple of others as well. And what Random Gaming in HD discovers in this video is that actually, if you run these under SteamOS, under that Linux-based operating system with that Proton compatibility layer, they're much, much smoother and run much better on the same hardware than they do under Windows, which is another win for SteamOS and for Linux-based gaming, and something that I thought was very interesting indeed, as that has been a particular favourite topic of mine in 2025. So, can SteamOS save these bad PC ports? 10 minutes, 13 seconds long, Random Gaming in HD. And I should also say you should check out the rest of Random Gaming in HD, not just for his coverage of SteamOS and Linux stuff, which he has also started to get into in a big way this year. But also, I featured some of his other videos this year as well, and he does look at some interesting low-cost hardware and stuff. Stuff that the other channels aren't covering, which I think is very interesting. So what was I watching and recommending for my videos of the week in August? Well, let's find out. And first up, a channel that has already featured, and there are quite a few to rattle through for August, so I will briefly give this one a mention, but it is very well worth a mention. This is Rob Smith Dev once more. You may remember him from his Whack-A-Mole floppy disk game that I talked about a moment ago, and also his disco disc car wash thing. This is his Alien motion tracker, and this project is basically his attempt, his very successful attempt, I will say, at building a working motion tracker from the Alien film. So, of course, the device was used for great effect in those films, building tension, tracking the aliens as the crew were desperately trying to survive and hunt them down. And this project culminated in myself and Rob and a few other retro tech YouTubers meeting up at our local laser tag place and actually putting this thing through its paces in real life. And I will say it actually worked very well, which you will see if you work your way through this series of videos. I think this is the first in the series. Again, as you would expect from Rob, 3D printing, electronics, programming stuff. So much work goes into this and so much thought goes into this and iteration. And he shows his prototypes and his whole process. Really fascinating stuff. Another great project from Rob. Speaking of great things, or perhaps not so great things, the next video is about the GeForce MX graphics cards, the GeForce 2 MX. And I thought this was interesting because, this is a 29-minute, 52-second long video, so it's quite a long video, but quite an interesting documentary type thing, and also a bit of a hands-on with the actual hardware, story about the history behind these cards, the story behind them, and also putting them through their paces. And the reason this was of particular interest to me was because our old family PC back in the day actually had one of these cards in it, and I recently rediscovered that PC. I need to get back on that. I did actually do a part 1 of a series trying to restore that, and then ran into some issues which I haven't covered on video yet, but I will. Not to mention a big studio move, which also happened this year. But these GeForce 2 MX graphics cards and how they were kind of a bit hobbled and a bit cut down, and they didn't have the greatest of reputation. But actually, with the right driver support and, with the right games that actually took advantage of these cards and supported them properly, perhaps they weren't so bad after all. And I think it is a bit of an unexplored chapter in the history of the NVIDIA GeForce cards. Covered here quite ably by Budget Builds Official, again, one of my favourite channels. Always tinkering with older, more obscure, ridiculously cheap eBay bargain bin hardware, and the GeForce 2 MX is no exception. So we've got some proper benchmarks and some gameplay footage on here of this card, what it's all about, and a bit of an introduction to the GeForce 2 MX. Well worth checking out, as are all of the other videos on this playlist. Yes, that hopefully goes without saying. Anyway, the next one is back onto another favourite topic of mine. This is Doom. And this was a game that I wasn't familiar with. This is a game called Pool Rooms, or I guess you call it, is it a game? I'm not quite sure what you would describe it as, but it's like a survival horror first-person experience thing. And someone has recreated Doom within this. Now, there's no combat or anything like that. I just really liked seeing this take on the original Doom and this kind of photorealistic survival horror camcorder style look at what these levels could perhaps look like. A completely different take on them. I do like different takes on the original Doom and people's interpretations of it. And it's interesting to see what it might look like if it was an actual real life space. So that's that. And not really much more to say on that. Next video, or selection of videos, I will say, I got a bit obsessed with Adam Savage in August, and he did a series where he went to, he was checking out a lot of NASA stuff. He was doing a lot of hands-on stuff with the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum, and, getting very kind of up close and personal with some proper ex-NASA stuff that the museum had just acquired that had actually flown in space, and talking to their restoration experts and the whole process that goes into restoring those things and putting them on display, which was absolutely fascinating. Everything on his channel is great, so do go and check out his channel. I'll try and put a few examples of those videos on the playlist if I remember, but yeah, just Adam Savage's Tested was a particular highlight of that month. Next up, going back to Clint from LGR Blurbs, and I wasn't aware. Now there is a good reason I'm talking about this, because these were actually made by a British company. These Atari branded hot sauces. I can't remember the name of the company. It is covered in the video. I do apologise, but yeah, these are Atari games that have inspired. Here we go. Here's the collection. So we've got a Yar's Revenge hot sauce. We've got a Pong hot sauce, Gravitar, Berserk, Asteroids, Super Breakout. And Clint actually goes through all of them and tastes them. So if you are interested in, perhaps a bit late for Christmas gift ideas, I will say, but if you are interested in checking out any of these Atari branded hot sauces, this is kind of your definitive review. And of course, Clint does know his spicy stuff. But I've talked quite a lot about Clint in this video, in this ramble so far. So we will proceed ahead to the next one. Now, this was a bit of a different video for me. This came up in my recommendations and kept popping up on my YouTube homepage, so I thought I'd check it out. And it is about Portal, which is one of my favourite games, of course, as you probably gathered from this. I am a big fan of Valve and all of their games. But Portal was a real highlight for me and one that I really enjoyed. It is a game that I have featured quite a lot in my own videos as well. And this is very different indeed. The way that the story is told in this, the narration and this guy's way of seeing the world was quite unique. And I guess it's unique. You can't have different levels of uniqueness, can you? But yeah, it's a very interesting take on Portal, and not an approach that I'd seen before, but checking out some of Pretzel's other videos, they are kind of very much in this vein, and I did find myself watching a few others off the back of this. But yeah, it does show some of the backstory, some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, some of the hidden areas around Portal, and kind of speculates a bit about what was going on around Aperture Science and the experiments that were going on within this game, of course. And yeah, just a very interesting approach, I think, to a game-related video. So yeah, one that I do highly recommend. Yeah, if I had a short list of my kind of top videos from this year, I would send you in the direction of this one, certainly. But yeah, it's called The World You Can't See in Portal, and it is 17 minutes and 3 seconds long, and just check it out. It's different and it's interesting. So next up, another Valve-related video, and I wanted to give this guy, I felt so sorry for RDev here. 2.85k subscribers. This video was a massive breakout hit for his channel with 136,000 views, and he got a lot of flack and a lot of negative feedback off the back of this, which, you know, I mean, the internet can be a harsh mistress at times, as we know. But what this is I recreated Half-Life 2, but it's Doom. And I think the reason a lot of people were offended by this was because they were expecting RDev here to have used the original Doom engine, or maybe GZ Doom or something like that, one of the modern source ports of Doom. Shout out to the Doom Shrine again, by the way. But what he did was actually go one level above that and create his own kind of Doom-type engine within Unity, and then port all of these graphics and things across from Half-Life 2 to that. So I can kind of see why people were perhaps felt a bit misled, although I don't think all the hate in the comments is justified. And I did want to give the guy a bit of a shout out and send some love his way, because just the way that the graphics and things have been downscaled and things have been adapted to take this, of course, this huge cinematic masterpiece that was Half-Life 2, and indeed it still is, even after all these years, and kind of shrink it down and compress it to within the limitations of an early 90s FPS like Doom, I thought was quite impressive, even though he didn't use the original Doom engine for it. So yeah, that's I recreated Half-Life 2, but it's Doom, from RDev, 136,000 views, on a channel with 2,850 subscribers, which, you know, I guess it didn't entice people to subscribe either. I do feel for the guy. Maybe I shouldn't, I don't know. Anyway, 14 minutes, 13 seconds, just something a little bit different if you are a fan of Half-Life and or indeed Doom, as I am. Anyway, right. Next video is Matt Casey Bites, another video from August. And I wasn't familiar with this game, Darkspore, this big online multiplayer game, which was, of course, an attempt at a kind of gritty... Is reboot is the right word? No, it was kind of a gritty, darker entry in the series from Spore, inspired by Spore, of course. EA, Will Wright of EA's Spore, that creature breeding and evolution and creation game, I think it's fair to say. But yeah, Darkspore was supposedly going to be like the kind of first-person shooter, darker. It's not a first-person shooter, is it? It's like an RTS type game. What am I thinking of? I'm thinking of something completely different. An action RPG based on the world of Spore. And the trouble is, this is one of these stop killing games type things that I've also talked about quite a lot this year, these game preservation things, where the original servers were shut down not all that long after the game was released, and it's just impossible to play. But in true Matt Casey style, oh, that's perfect timing for your sponsor spot there, let's just skip that. In true Matt Casey style, the servers that this actually ran on originally have been reverse engineered, and this game is being brought back from the dead. And the interesting thing is, it's being brought back from the dead by people who didn't even play it when the game was still current. And this is a fascinating story all about the team behind this reboot. I don't think Matt Casey is all that directly involved in this himself, as he was with the Lego Island stuff and some of the other stuff that he has covered on his channel. But he does tell the story of the game, which is a game that I'd heard of. I wasn't really familiar with what it was all about. And of course, the team behind trying to reboot this and bring this back. So this unplayable game is being resurrected by people who never played it. 11 minutes and 2 seconds over on Matt Casey Bites, of course, Matt Casey's second channel. Another one of his interesting game preservation efforts and documentaries. Next one, right. This was actually emailed to me at the time by a really, really nice guy. I can't remember the guy's name. I'm really sorry. I should have made some notes, but I've kind of jumped straight into this, unprepared as always. And it's a brand new CGA game that has been created in Quick Basic this year. And I thought it was a really nice game, really well put together. You know, it would have been quite popular, I think, if it had been released back in the day. But interesting to see people doing stuff with CGA machines, with these old XT class machines. And I just wanted to give this guy a bit of a shout out. 1,720 subscribers. He's doing some great software development stuff, some great game development stuff on these older PCs. 99 Things is the name of the game. 2025 MS-DOS game for IBM PCs with CGA graphics, and the Quick Basic source is available for that. And I've just paused it here on the system requirements, so you need an 8088 CPU at 4.77 MHz, 256K of RAM, MS-DOS 2.11, a CGA graphics card, and a 360K floppy drive. So yeah, really tight constraints he was working within to develop this game. And yeah, it looks really involved, really complex, and quite a lot of fun. So that's 99 Things. And finally, my final video of the week for August. And I wanted to give this one a bit of attention because this isn't in my usual remit, I will say. This is massive mainstream YouTube stuff, but I do watch this stuff. It is a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine, and I do like Ryan Trahan, I will say. He's a lovely chap. Apparently very, very much like that in real life as well. And he did this series. This was a big part of my 2025, which is why I wanted to talk about it here, where him and his wife, Haley, actually travelled around the entirety of America, all 50 states, in 50 days, pretty much by road. Of course, there are a couple of states that you can't drive to directly by road, which he did have to fly to towards the end of the series. Spoiler alert. And he stayed in the top-rated Airbnb in every state on every day of this road trip, as well as doing some other kind of local attractions and things as well. And it's just this whole side of America that you don't get to see as you know, as a foreign. I guess there's a lot of Americans as well who haven't seen some of this stuff. And just you know, America as a country, it's just a huge place. There's just so much to see and do, and I find the whole thing fascinating. All these really creative and original Airbnbs, you know, stuff like old missile silos and tree houses and all sorts of really interesting places to stay. He comes across really well on camera. He's a really nice chap. All of his interactions with people are all very wholesome and very positive. Yeah, it's just a really great kind of travel series, I thought. So Something very, very different for Reese Rambles, but I wanted to just put a bit of a spotlight on it for anyone who's looking for something a bit different to watch, perhaps. The series has concluded now. He did successfully visit all 50 states in 50 days. Spoiler alert. Not that I expect any less. And the grand finale is also really, really nice as well. Yeah, I won't spoil any of that. But great series that not at all retro tech or retro computing related. But yeah, one of my favourite channels, and 21.9 million subscribers. So probably doesn't need any help from me. But I know a good video when I see one. I thought this was a good series of videos. Into September now, and if you've been following my channel closely, you'll also be aware that September is the month when I moved studio. So yeah, my original studio was 30 miles down the road, cross country, about a good kind of 45-minute drive away on a good day, when they're not digging up all of the roads, which for some reason they have been for the past few months. And that was massively disruptive to my own channel. So I don't really have any of my own videos to talk about from the past couple of months, but I was watching YouTube, and I did have stuff on in the studio as I was building this new studio. I also released some supporter exclusive behind the scenes coverage of this as well. And there was a main channel release that talked about the new studio and the move a little bit later on, which I will mention a bit later. But in the meantime, let's check out September. Is this September? Yes, it is. It's September. So this video, absolutely fascinating look at internet shopping in 1997. So this was part of the BBC's The Money programme. And again, this is over on BBC Archive. Now, the fascinating thing about this is that they did a case study as part of this programme on a company that was selling cakes online in 1997. So you could actually go to their website and you could order cakes from this bakery. And they had customers all over the world. They said that their cakes were particularly popular in Japan. And off the back of this, I actually went and looked up this bakery. And they're still in business, and they're still doing massively well, and they're still selling their cakes online from their website. So they were a really early pioneer. And it was great to see that they're still around. And obviously this was a massive success for them. So that's quite cool. But the whole concept behind this program is just bizarre, with the presenter stepping into the web browser and into the world of the, here we go, like you can see him stepping into the screen, into the information superhighway, and taking his little walk around the whatever it is, series of tubes that makes up the internet in 1997, and emerging in the back room of this bakery selling these cakes online. So I love stuff like this. Of course, they had no idea how big the internet was going to be, or what a big, important part of our daily lives it was going to be when they made this program all those years ago in 1997. And it's quite quaint, but of course it's the BBC, so it's very well made and well researched and put together. And just one of these slice of life type things, which I find fascinating. And I do have another one for you in a moment as well. But yeah, Botham's Bakery, there we go. So this is Will Internet Shopping Ever Take Off from 97 on the BBC Archive, and that is 10 minutes and 34 seconds. And of course, you will also find that on the playlist, along with all of my other videos of the year. And next up, something a little bit different, something completely different from Johnny Smith, if you remember him from Fifth Gear. Was he ever on Top Gear itself? He did a lot of writing for Top Gear magazine, didn't he? And this was of interest to me because of the car that is featured in this. So this is a car restoration video, and it is called the Matra Rancho, the Talbot Matra Rancho, which is basically the first of these soft roader SUV fake off-roader things, which lots of people seem to drive these days, including myself. And there are only 3 of these left on the road here in the UK. And the interesting story about this particular vehicle, and the reason why I was so interested in this series, and I have been keeping up with this series and watching the various updates and things that have been published. But the reason I found this of interest was because I was nearly born in the back of one of these cars, and I did tell that story in the Ramble where this was featured. But yeah, my dad actually had one of these at the time. And it broke down on the way to the hospital when my mum was in labour with me. And I was, very nearly born in the back of one of these things at 2 o'clock in the morning on a cold and frosty March morning. So a very special place in my heart, and nice to see this very rare example of a not particularly interesting car being saved And I also like the angle, I like the approach that they went with this, with the donor vehicle that they used for the running gear and stuff. Something completely and utterly unexpected and completely and utterly bonkers as well. So worth checking out this series. It's a longer series, but if you're into cars and car restorations and more obscure stuff in that vein, I can highly recommend that. Anyway, moving on. Jeff Geerling, one of my favourite YouTube channels. I love Jeff. Hasn't featured yet, oddly enough, in this particular roundup, but that is going to be remedied right now. This is a video all about CubeSats, those little cube-shaped satellites, DIY efforts, and specifically ones based around the Raspberry Pi. Now, if you're familiar with Jeff's channel, you'll know that he is a huge fan of the Raspberry Pi, as am I, and he does some really excellent coverage of that particular machine. But yeah, I knew absolutely nothing about CubeSats and about launching stuff into space and just how easy it was as a DIYer. And you know, this is a really great introduction to that and how it all works and how the hardware works. And he talks to some people who are very much involved in that world. So great introduction to the topic, as well as some of the hardware. So that's called Pies in Space. It is 28 minutes, 23 seconds long, over on Jeff Geerling's channel. And if you don't know Jeff Geerling, do check out his other videos as well, although I'm not quite sure how you wouldn't be familiar with him, because he is a legend. He's the YouTube equivalent of a national treasure, I think. Moving on, some more Doom-related stuff next, and this is from Decino, which is another quite big channel. It's called Every Softlock in Doom and Doom 2. And what this is everywhere, every place in the original Doom 1 and Doom 2 levels where it's possible to get stuck and basically get the game into an incompletable state, which I thought was quite interesting. I wasn't expecting there to be quite so many. A lot of them are to do with dodgy bits of level geometry and stuff and places where you can get stuck. You can see an example here from E1M8 from the final level of that first shareware episode of Doom. And a lot of these things were also fixed as well in later releases of the game, later revisions of the game. But the cool thing about this video, as you can see here, if you are watching this on YouTube, is that Decino also explains why this stuff happens, how it all works, and the limitations of the game engine itself and what causes these softlocks to actually happen in the game. And also about some of the fixes and things, and how some of the modern source ports have also tried to kind of faithfully recreate the same conditions that also lead to these softlocks. So, yeah, you know, a game that I am very, very familiar with, and yet I didn't know about any of these, I don't think. I'm not sure I've ever... I mean, maybe once or twice the game's kind of glitched out and I've got stuck and I've kind of thought, oh, you know, I have to reload my last save or whatever. But to think that these are... you know, reproducible things that are limitations of the game engine and the game level design, and that people have actually very thoroughly explored these and documented them, I thought was fascinating. I like anything to do with Doom lore and going deeper into the world of Doom, and that's why I love this video. So yeah, Every Softlock in Doom and Doom 2, 19 minutes, 25 seconds long on Decino. And now something very different. Again, we're going to go back to the BBC archive for another programme from 1984. And this is a programme called 40 Minutes, Voices in a City. And I don't remember which city it was, I apologise, but it was a northern city. Was it Manchester or Liverpool? It's a couple of months since I've watched this. But again, this was the year I was born, so that was why it kind of took my interest. But it also happens that this was the launch of the Police National Computer in the UK, and some of the people that they've interviewed, or at least one guy that they interviewed as part of this documentary, was talking about some of the issues with that and, you know, false arrests and things caused by people with the same name being like, you know, tracked down for crimes that they hadn't committed and stuff. And, you know, there is that computing angle to it as well. There's also stuff to do with like mass surveillance and, you know, all sorts of stuff. Things that I think very much are of concern in modern times as well in 2025. And yet people were talking about these things all those years ago, 41 years ago. And, you know, also talking about how computers were kind of becoming a part of that and starting to become a part of our daily lives as well. So really, really interesting stuff. Again, from the BBC archive, 37 minutes and 25 seconds, well worth a watch on its own, in and of itself, and I think one of my favourite things that I have watched this year. But we will continue, because we do still have quite a lot of stuff to cover. So, Techmoan, his first appearance on this list, again, another channel that I watch religiously. I'm sure a lot of you do too, and here he is covering one of my favourite bits of hardware, again, the Atari Video Music, that music visualizer from 1975, was it? 1977, something like that. A piece of hardware that I do own the original, and I have covered it on my channel. And of course, he is probably the other big British YouTuber that is known for his coverage of the video music. And he dubbed it the migraine machine at one point, which it has now become colloquially known as. And quite rightly so, I will say. But this is him taking a look at a modern interpretation of Atari's video music. And it tries to be quite a close approximation of that unit's functionality as well, which is very cool to see. It does add some new features and things, and this is a bit of a review of that new piece of hardware and how it all works. Of course, Matt from Techmoan, he has had some really quite horrific health problems and things this year as well, and I followed all of that. I am a patron of his. I've been following stuff behind the scenes, and this was kind of a big comeback for him. Really nice to see him kind of back on form and stuff as well. He built a new studio as well, which was all going on at the same time, so all of that ties into it. But if nothing else, it's a fascinating piece of technology. He talks a bit about the Atari video music as well, which is one of my favourite bits of hardware of all time. And also this modern take on it, which I thought was very interesting. And you can also go out and buy one yourself from Etsy if you like what you see and you want to have a play with it yourself. So that's that, 1456 that is. VidPix, a modern-ish take on the Atari video music from Techmoan. Moving very quickly along, Angry Video Game Nerd. I'm only going to touch on this one very briefly, just because I used to watch his stuff, I think before YouTube was even a thing, like the early 2000s. I can't believe he's still around and he's still doing this. James Rolfe, of course. And I don't know what possessed me to watch this, or even why YouTube stuck it on my homepage in my recommendations, but I did watch it. And I was very surprised to see an appearance from Gwar, the Goblin metal band, whatever they are, towards the end of this. So I featured it as one of my videos of the week, just as a bit of a, I don't know, I just kind of wanted to acknowledge Angry Video Game Nerd's early work on kind of video game coverage on the internet. There's a sponsor spot, we'll skip that. And just that he's still kind of making the exact same style of videos all these years later. And I'm not a regular viewer of his, but I am familiar with him as a creator. And I suppose respect is due for the fact that he has been in the game for so long. Also, he doesn't age, does he? It looks exactly the same as he did 20 years ago. I don't know. Anyway, Mario Paint is the topic of this specific video, 22 minutes and 5 seconds long. If you enjoyed Angry Video Game Nerd back in the day and want to see him still doing the exact same shtick 20 years later, it's probably worth a watch. I actually quite enjoyed it, although it didn't really didn't inspire me to go and watch any of his other modern stuff, I will say. Anyway, that is that. And finally, Ahoy. Fantastic, really good in-depth documentary stuff on old games and things. And this is about a lesser-known mascot platformer called Brat, which looked vaguely familiar to me, although I don't think I've ever played it. And it was just a really well-researched and well-put-together video about the history of the game, and it's a game that a lot of people won't have played themselves. Kind of the bigger gaming industry at the time and how it fits in with all of the mascot platformers and lemmings and whatnot. So, yeah, it's well worth a watch, and also Ahoy is well worth a subscribe. 1.84 million subscribers, so it's hardly a smaller channel by anyone's standards. But 13 minutes, 28 seconds, very well put together documentary, and of course also part of the playlist, as per all of the other videos of the year that I'm featuring in this Reese Ramble's Christmas special. October now, and do you ever wish you hadn't committed to something? Yeah, anyway, completely unrelated. So we'll dive in with the first video, and this is very different indeed. I told you there would be some curveballs and things as part of this list, and this very much fits into that category. So I wasn't familiar with Luke O'Sullivan's channel, but I will say I did go on to watch quite a few of his other videos off the back of this, and they are brilliant. They are really well put together. I talked a bit about Chris Spargo in previous month's coverage and how he was the new Tom Scott, but I do think that Luke O'Sullivan is another strong contender as well. So this is a documentary type video about the hovercraft that used to sail across the English Channel. And I very much remember the hovercraft being a thing, although I never got to go on it myself. We had the normal car ferry, we had the hovercraft, and we had the Sea Cat as well that used to sail from various places on the English south coast across to France. And I only ever got to go on the car ferry, and of course tend to take the Channel Tunnel or even fly now if we do travel to France. But the hovercraft was once an option, and this thing is just a bizarre feat of engineering. Just the fact that they built this hovercraft that was big enough to contain multiple cars and hundreds of people, and that they sailed it all that distance across the English Channel. Absolute madness. And the fact that they extended the thing, they actually expanded it because there was so much demand for the service. And essentially what they did was cut the thing into quarters and just add extra metal into the middle to make the whole thing bigger, which is covered in this video and which is talked about. And there are interviews with some of the people that were involved with the running of this hovercraft back in the day. Fascinating thing, and I didn't realise that they are actually still running in some parts of the UK as well, doing some routes across the sea. So really fascinating bit of history. What happened to Britain's great transport experiment? If you're into engineering stuff at all, this is well worth a watch. And hovercrafts are just cool, aren't they? They're just great bits of engineering. So yeah, 14 minutes, 40 seconds. Luke O'Sullivan, one of my favourite videos from October. Now, next up, what is happening to Japan? Now, I wanted to give this one a bit of a shout out because abroad in Japan, Chris Broad, a British guy who has been living in Japan for 10 plus years now, and makes some really, really great videos about it. And one of my favourite subjects, as well as one of my favourite YouTubers. But this is more a video about YouTubers and influencers and their deceptive practices, very one-sided views on things and trying to clickbait people by creating drama that doesn't really exist. And Chris saw this video from this other creator and was very, very annoyed, and quite understandably so, because he lives there, he loves the place, he knows it inside and out, and she was very much misrepresenting what Japan was all about. And doing it for clicks and very much upsetting a lot of local people in the process. So he decided to call her out on this. Very much not the kind of stuff that he usually covers, I will say. He usually does some excellent documentary stuff. But yeah, I think I thought it was, just an interesting commentary on a much kind of wider problem of these influencers and the lengths that they go to get clicks and create drama. And it's just getting ridiculous, isn't it? It's just, it's very sad to see. But did give me an opportunity to draw attention to Chris Broad's channel. Excellent, excellent channel. And if you're at all interested in Japanese stuff or want to get interested in it, there are certainly far worse ways that you can do that. So yeah, what is happening to Japan? More a kind of commentary on influencer culture and YouTubers and stuff. But 40 minutes, 58 seconds, abroad in Japan, well worth checking out, and well worth checking out the rest of his channel as well. But not computing or gaming related. The next one very much is. So this is Jeff Geerling again, and he's talking about Raspberry Pis again. And this is a model of Raspberry Pi that I actually wasn't familiar with, and I went shopping on eBay for one after seeing this video because I wanted one for my collection. Sadly, there weren't any available. I do need to have another look, but he's essentially putting the original Raspberry Pi through its paces. Now, I did own one of the originals, but not this blue edition that they did as a kind of an anniversary edition to celebrate the success of the Pi. But it turns out that the original Pi is still supported by Raspberry Pi. They still support it with the Raspbian OS and stuff nowadays. So Jeff decided to take a look at it. Of course, it was released in 2013, I believe. So very old piece of hardware. Of course, very limited hardware as well at the time. It was built to a very low cost, quite famously. And just interesting to see what you can or indeed can't do with the first version of the Raspberry Pi in 2025. Turns out you can't do much with them at all. Jeff kind of ran into a bit of a brick wall with it, I think, but there are some good suggestions down in the comments of this video, people using them for firewalls and stuff, so kind of non-graphical stuff. Nice to see this old hardware still being used and still being useful, and great to draw attention to that as well, and also to this limited edition blue Raspberry Pi, which I very much wasn't familiar with. Cool video, Jeff Geerling, great guy, 21 minutes and 12 seconds. And yeah, something very different for the next one, but this has been quite big news this year and something that I am meaning to check out over the Christmas break. So The Simpsons Hit and Run, the GTA-style Simpsons open-world driving game. Someone has done what can only be described as a total conversion mod for this, based on Futurama. Of course, there was a Futurama game back in the day on the Xbox and I believe the PlayStation 2. Really good game. And someone has basically taken the Simpsons Hit and Run and slapped all of the Futurama assets onto it. Done all the voices. I think they're using AI placeholders for the voices, but they have said that they are going to get proper voice actors in. Probably not the original voice actors. And it's all been modelled in great detail, and they've designed missions and stuff that are all very much in keeping with the whole Futurama universe. It's a huge amount of work. It's incredibly well done. A few streamers have done Let's Play type videos and stuff on this. And it is, so this is essentially the first episode, which is available for free, and then it will be a paid thing for the rest of the content. But I was in awe of the work that went into this mod for this game. I'm a huge fan of The Simpsons and the Futurama, and Futurama as well. And I just love projects like this. As you can probably see, I've featured a few in this little wrap-up. So that is well worth going and checking out. The Futurama mod for Simpsons Hit and Run is finally here on a channel called Jammo. 1,300 subscribers. I mean, come on, people. You know, show Jammo some love. 160,000 views on this video. It's 18 minutes and 13 seconds long. Just tells a bit of the story behind this mod and also shows a big chunk of the gameplay in action and some really great, well thought out missions and things in here. Very coherent package. This could have been a retail game back in the day. But moving on, another video from Big Clive and just another example of what he does with his electronics teardowns. As I mentioned before, he likes to point out these scams and things. This is no different at all. This is a phone battery booster. Essentially, it's a completely useless circuit board with a USB port on it that apparently, if you plug it into your phone, it reconditions the battery and makes it last a lot longer. But as you'll see from Big Clive's teardown, there's nothing in it. It is just a complete and utter rip-off, and a good example of some of these gadgets you can get on these markets and on AliExpress and stuff like that. Temu, I guess. But, you know, just an example of Big Clive's work, and I enjoyed it. I always like his teardown videos. I'm a big fan of his, and just wanted to give him another shot at being on the Videos of the Year playlist as well, because it's a very kind of typical example of the kind of stuff that he does. Highly entertaining and highly educational. Only 6 minutes and 21 seconds, a scam phone battery booster, but we will move on. I just wanted to briefly give a mention to the VCF Tech YouTuber discussion panel. Some really big names in here, lots of people that I have featured so far in indeed my videos of the week here on Reese Rambles, but also this roundup of videos of the year. VCF Midwest, of course, the Vintage Computer Federation show. They have a few of these across America at various points in the year. Got some, I'm not going to attempt to name everyone here, although I probably can, but we've got you know, people like Action Retro, Sean, we've got LGR, we've got the 8-Bit Guy, Polymat on here. You know, we've got, you know, all the big names, of course, ably hosted by our good friend Jim Leonard as well. And yeah, great question and answer session with all of these people whose channels I'm sure you are familiar with. A bit of a video in its own right, 1 hour and 29 minutes long, but a great thing to stick on in the background when you're working on projects and stuff. That's what I do with these things. And great to learn a bit more about these creators as well, behind the scenes, a bit more about their process and their backgrounds and the thought process that goes into their videos and their channels. Next up is this one. I saw this pop up absolutely everywhere at the time. James' channel, a completely and utterly mental and unhinged video where he hacks up an original Xbox and turns it into a handheld. And you've got the disc exposed, just spinning freely in midair. You've got all the circuit boards exposed. You've got wires everywhere. But it does work by the end of the video. And if you want to learn a bit more about the internals of the original Xbox, I guess this is one way to learn. But also a very entertaining video and a very stupid project. And sometimes, you know, not all projects have to be sensible and practical. I really like this one. I like James' channel. I love his approach to things. It's, you know what you're going to get going in, and this is certainly no exception to that rule. Very, very funny guy. 33 minutes, 37 seconds. This was made its way across all the tech sites and things, got a lot of coverage at the time. 1.2 million views, quite well deserved. This is the original Xbox Portable. And yeah, part of the playlist. Made it onto the videos of the year. This one was quite a big video at the time. So this is Technology Connextras, which is, of course, Alec from Technology Connections. It's his second channel. Talking about some box sets, some DVD box sets, because he collects these DVD box sets of classic TV series. As we can see here, stuff like Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, and Frasier. And he was comparing some later releases of the same box sets that he'd found for sale in like thrift stores and stuff in America. And he'd ripped the discs and was saying that the later releases were actually kind of much lower bit rate and much lesser quality. And a lot of people pointed out in the comments, and I think quite rightly in a lot of cases, that these box sets that he was looking at were probably bootlegs, and that would explain why they were such poor quality, which he didn't pick up on in the original video, and he has since put out a statement about that and acknowledged that, which is cool. Wouldn't expect any less from Alec. He is a very stand-up guy, very entertaining guy as well. I'm surprised he doesn't feature a lot more, actually, in Video of the Week. I do watch his channel quite a lot. I guess I just assume that everyone else watches it as well, but yeah, just this one. There was a lot of discussion off the back of this one, so I wanted to acknowledge this as well, just these DVD box sets. I very much fell for the same conclusion that he did, that these were later re-releases, and I kind of put out a bit of an announcement, I think, trying to be helpful, saying, you know, look out for these later releases because they're not as good. And I also got the same comments back from people saying, no, actually, you know, people are discussing this and these do seem to be bootlegs. So, yeah, drawing attention to that. Wow, my voice is starting to go, isn't it? We're nearly there. We're in October. Just a couple more to cover for October for my videos of the year. This one I enjoyed very much. This is the serial port, pushing dial-up modems further than we ever thought possible. They take a big pile of dial-up modems and they connect a load of them together and have them all running in parallel over multiple lines at the same time, which was very much a thing back in the day, although not a thing that household users would have done, I think it's fair to say. And what do they get up to? Like 12 modems in total, something like that. But so cool to see the process. It's very well thought out. It's all very well put together. It's a real piece of history, seeing how this would have worked back in the day and how these things... I mean, it's not really... It was a function I was aware of, but not really... Did they call it bonding? Something like that? I don't know. It was a function that I was aware of, but not one that I have any experience of whatsoever. Not one that I'd come across. Really interesting topic for a video as well. So... pushing dial-up modems further than we ever thought possible. 25 minutes and 12 seconds, and that is on a channel called The Serial Port. Massive, massive video at the time, 436,000 views, and very well deserved as well, because it was very, very interesting and very well done. And finally, my final video of the week for October was something completely different again. And this is to do with telephone poles in the UK. And we had Chris Spargo on earlier, we had Luke O'Sullivan as well. And this is another channel in that same kind of Tom Scott vein. This is called Ringway Manchester. And it's all about the little markings that you see on British telephone poles. And trust me, I assure you, this is a lot more interesting than it sounds. And it's to do with how the network works and how the poles are all connected together and how it all branches out and identifying those and what's connected to what, and also the type of wood and the treatment used on the poles and the age of the pole and who it's been maintained by. You don't even think about this stuff, and yet once you get into it, it's actually quite interesting. So yeah, what do the signs on telephone poles mean? It is technology related, it is networking and internet related, I guess. So yeah, we'll take that angle, shall we? Ringway Manchester. It's 11 minutes and 54 seconds, a really nice, concise little video. I did also go off and watch a few more of their videos off the back of this one, and they were all just as interesting and just as weird and wonderful. So if you do check this out, please do check out their other videos as well. Perhaps subscribe to their channel. Yeah, markings on telephone poles. Who thought that that could be such an interesting subject? So, videos of the year 2025, and we find ourselves in November. We are in the final stretch. A couple of videos that I did feature in November. I haven't made the cut, I will say, just because they were kind of covering current events and other stuff that I was talking about in the rambles that don't really make sense out of context. But I do have 10 videos for you, so let's take a look at these. And I'm going to start off with Random Gaming in HD, which is a channel that has featured previously on this list. It is a channel that I watch a lot, and this isn't a system that I was familiar with. So, this is Corsair's first pre-built gaming PC, and this dates back to, what does this date back to? It didn't even mention in the description. How rude. I think it was like 2007-ish, something like that. But yeah, this was over £2,000 worth of PC when it was first launched, and he bought it for not a lot on eBay. But the custom case design here, just the way the thermals work and the cooling, or the built-in liquid cooling system, I thought this was a really brilliantly designed case, and it's a system that I wasn't familiar with at all. And the cool thing about this, according to some of the people in the comments as well, is that it's all kind of commodity ITX-based stuff, and there are people out there who've actually upgraded these with modern internals. And the reason I wanted to feature this was not only to give another bit of a shout out to Random Gaming in HD, one of my favourite channels, but also because I really want one of these. I mean, I'm probably not going to be able to get my hands on one, particularly now it's been featured on a big YouTube channel, but I love this. I think it's such a brilliantly designed piece of hardware, and it would be great to get my hands on one and to turn it into a bit of a project. And hopefully it looks like that's what Random Gaming in HD is going to do. But if nothing else, a good look around a weird and wonderful PC design. They don't come along very often, so I think they do need to be celebrated when they do. And yeah, 11 minutes and 40 seconds, I bought a cheap Corsair One gaming PC in 2025. Did I say it was from 2007? I think I meant 2011-ish. Something like that, anyway. Not that it really matters. It's an interesting video. Next up, now this was Zachary Staines, and I wasn't familiar with this guy, but he's a young guy, and he remembers the original Xbox from when he was a kid. Now, I was in college when the original Xbox was released, but one of these Zoomer-style videos, quite hyperactive editing. It's not over the top. I didn't find it particularly annoying, but somebody discovering software emulation, one of the younger generation, picks up one of these cheap as chips HP Elite Desk small form factor PCs, which you can get from bins and skips outside offices. You can't even give these things away. It does actually feature in at least another one of these videos as well, I will say. And he goes through the process of getting an original Xbox emulator set up on there. And you can see from the comments and stuff that this is a very different audience to the kind of stuff that I do, and probably from the kind of audience that are watching this and listening to this. So I thought it was worth a mention, because it's just nice to see other people getting into this stuff, and it kind of going out to a wider audience and a younger audience as well, people who remember this stuff from their childhood and getting to revisit it. And I don't like to be gatekeepery about this at all. I like to encourage anyone and everyone to get into it if they want to enjoy these games and experience them. And any way that they want to go about that is good with me. So it was nice to see old Zachary here. He also talks, to that audience about how emulators work and, all of that stuff. And the BIOS stuff, the ROM stuff, all the software side of it. There was stuff that I think all of us older folk perhaps understand a bit better and maybe take for granted. So anyway, I thought it was an interesting watch, a different take on a subject that I've watched a million different videos on before. And good on you, Zachary. So yeah, I forced my mini PC to be an original Xbox. It's only 11 minutes and 8 seconds, and I think worth a watch. Anyway, next up is, some more Linux gaming stuff from Gamers Nexus. Absolutely massive channel. Very thoroughly scientific approach to everything that he does. And in this case, these are benchmarks of Bazite, which I have mentioned a fair bit over the course of this year. Of course, that's, if you've forgotten already, Fedora-based Linux gaming operating system based on Valve's work on SteamOS, on the Steam Deck. And he takes his scientific approach to benchmarking that. So he got some actual proper benchmarks with some very, very controlled conditions of some Windows games running under Bazzite. This is the beginning of what's going to turn into a much longer running series, benchmarking all of these games under Bazzite versus Windows and looking at the performance between the two. And in a lot of cases, seeing that these games, again, do perform a lot better under Bazzite. And I love Bazzite. I've become a bit of a shill for it. I promise you they're not paying me. It's an open source project. I doubt they could afford to pay me. I just love what they're doing, and I love to see Linux succeeding at something, particularly as I'm not such a fan of what Microsoft is doing with Windows 11, I will say, for various reasons that I won't go into here. But anyway, RIP Windows. Linux GPU gaming benchmarks on Bazzite. It's 48 minutes and 12 seconds, massive, meaty video, but very, very well done, very scientific, and great to see their approach to benchmarking all these various games. But moving on quite swiftly. Another one of these old ex-office small form factor systems, very similar to one that I'm going to be getting my hands on in the very near future as well. David does tech stuff, another channel that I wasn't aware of until this popped up, and then I actually went off and watched a few of his other videos, and I do really love his stuff, so well worth checking out. But this is Amazing Cheap Games for Potato/Bad Internet Havers, and it's just a list of game recommendations for people with either not very good internet connections, so smaller games, much smaller download sizes, and also, kind of lower spec PCs like these old ex-office PCs and stuff as well. Some really, really great games in here, and these are all new games as well. So he has his criteria. I think they have to be released in the past 5 years, under $25 and under 2 gig download size, I think. So, some quite strict criteria. And there were a lot of games on this list, I will say, that I wasn't familiar with that I would quite like to check out, that I probably won't because I won't have time, which is a bit of a recurring theme here on Reese Rambles. But if you're interested in that kind of thing, by all means, go and watch his video and hopefully you will be inspired. Next up, speaking of potato games, Red Dwarf video games. Red Dwarf, of course, big sci-fi series, started in the 80s, believe it or not, ran through the 90s and has had a few attempts at reboots over the years. I'm a big fan of Red Dwarf. I love it. And one thing I hadn't really considered previously is that it hadn't had any official game releases in the 90s when the series was like really, really huge originally. There were some homebrew attempts on the various systems of the time, and there have been some mobile games and things and some browser-based games that have been released to tie in with the newer series in the 2000s. All of this completely and utterly passed me by. Hadn't even considered that there would be Red Dwarf games out there. So it was great to see these on Yesterday, and another opportunity to shout out a nice, a smaller channel doing some nice things as well. So yeah, 1.14k subscribers. Nice to see this video doing well with 34,000 views. And I watched this on my TV. I think I was lying in bed gave this a watch. Good video, 20 minutes long. It's good length, good pacing, lots of good games covered. And if you're a fan of Red Dwarf and hadn't considered that there might be games out there based on it, yeah, it's a good watch and very educational. So good work Yesterday. Enjoyed this video a lot, and it has made the cut for the Reese Rambles Videos of the Year 2025. And that means it can be found on the playlist, link below. Have I mentioned the playlist? I think I've mentioned the playlist. Anyway, Valve has featured quite heavily. In fact, it's probably been my topic of the year this year. Looking back, yeah, I wasn't expecting that going in, but been a fan since the original Half-Life, I think. And one thing that people have been talking about a lot is, of course, Half-Life 3. How long have we been waiting for this game? Dear God, I don't even like to think about it. But this is another bigger channel, Mug Thief. Half-Life 3 won't stop leaking, and we know a lot. And this is a really good summary of all the data mining that's been going on. So, of course, Valve release a lot of games. They release, updates to their games, I should say. They don't release a lot of games, but, they do update their older games quite a lot. All of their Source Engine-based games out there do get regular updates, of course, Steam itself, and you can dig around in the data of these games and indeed the Steam front end and discover interesting features and things that don't seem to feature in those games and don't seem to fit very well. but once you put them all together, do add up to what would make quite a good Half-Life game. And this is basically just a roundup of all of that data mining, all of that stuff that people have managed to dig up from within all of these various bits of software, and paints a bigger picture of what might be Half-Life 3. Of course, a game that people have been absolutely desperate for. And with Valve announcing the release of the Steam machine next year, of course, there is a lot of speculation that this might be a launch title for that system as well. And that would make a lot of sense, I think. So, you know, I'm one of those people who's been living in hope for all these years. And I love any coverage to do with Half-Life 3. And if nothing else, you know, it's quite interesting to see these conspiracy theories and people digging around in code and in files and whatnot, and trying to create something from it. So that's Mug Thief. Half-Life 3 won't stop leaking. 25 minutes and 49 seconds. It was a very well presented video. I quite like the guy. He comes across very well. Not a channel I was familiar with at all, but a good watch, I think, in its own right. And also a good reminder of, you know, some of the Half-Life story over the years, I think. So that's that. I built a cheap Steam console to play the classics. I just wanted to put this on the list because this is another one of these HP Elite Desk things, just something else that you could do with one of these old small form factor office PCs. In the case of Spawnwave, again, a channel that I watch a lot. Of course, I mentioned that previous one, Zachary Staines, who ran an Xbox emulator on his. Spawnwave has put Bazite on his, as you might expect, and it's really interesting to see just how capable it is. And another thing I thought was interesting was that he discovered this one had a very, very rare GPU upgrade as well internally, which was a very unusual option for these machines when they were new. And surprising to see how capable it is at gaming. So that's Spawnwave. I built a cheap Steam console to play the classics. Just wanted to throw this in here just because it kind of fits together with a load of other stuff that I've covered in this list. 13 minutes and 40 seconds long. Now, Polymat has been a particular highlight of the year for me. I know this guy, Matt. He has been a supporter of my channel for a long time, and he contacted me a while ago when he first started to get into YouTube, just asking me for advice and stuff, and I pointed him in the direction of some people who are far better qualified than me. And I am very, very pleased to see how successful he has been this year. I mean, yeah, he's I think he's just hit 100,000 subscribers. His channel has grown very quickly and deservedly so, because the videos that he makes are art. They are fantastic. If you've not come across Polymat, please do check out this video and do check out his other stuff. He's very, very smart when it comes to 3D printing and design stuff. Does restoration type videos. Nobody else is making the kind of stuff that Polymat is making, and he's going to be absolutely huge. I mean, he's already growing very quickly. This one, quite recently, just a month ago, he collaborated with Clint from LGR. Another mention for Clint. Clint bought a laptop that was all smashed up on eBay, very, very rare machine, and Matt has meticulously 3D modelled all of it, 3D printed replacement parts for all of it, and rebuilt it, and also done some electronics repairs and things on the actual motherboard. So monumental effort here, and the end result is fantastic. Great channel. My highlight of the year, if I could pick a channel of the year, it would probably be Polymat, I will say. So do go and check that one out. Definitely made the cut, and I can see I've only got 2 minutes left on my SD card. So That Nukem Guy, a very small channel who is pumping out videos all about the original Doom, and has been all year. I've watched pretty much all of the videos that he has done on the subject. I've talked about him a few times on my video of the week. Really enthusiastic guy, very knowledgeable about Doom and stuff, and obviously very passionate about it as a game as well. He does occasionally do other first-person shooters. Obviously, the name That Nukem Guy, he has covered Duke Nukem stuff as well, and a few other games, but I think it's fair to say that Doom is where his interest lies. And I just wanted to, the quirks and oddities of Doom 2 is just a good example of the kind of videos that he's making. So, you know, he talks about some of the quirks and oddities of Doom 2 and how it relates to the original Doom, and some background information about the development of Doom 2 and information around the launch of the game. So do go check him out. A bit of a smaller channel, although I see he has just surpassed 10,000 subscribers, which is really good because he is certainly putting the work in. And some great stuff there if you love Doom, which, as you know, I do. 1 minute left. And Michael MJD, he doesn't need too much of a shout out, does he? But yeah, this is Windows 10 LTSC, which is going to be supported by Microsoft until 2032. Now, this is the IoT version, but it does run on standard PC hardware. If you are running Windows 10, you can very easily upgrade to this LTSC edition. Runs everything that Windows 10 runs and will also have security updates until 2032, which of course the mainstream releases of Windows 10 don't. So if you want to stick with 10 and not upgrade to 11, or perhaps your hardware doesn't support it, this is the recommended route to go down, and Michael MJD does a great job of documenting it in this video. There you go, November. Which brings us around rather neatly to December, this month, December 2025. And that means, of course, that there have only been a couple of Rambles released so far, and therefore not all that many videos of the week. So we're nearly there. Hooray! And I want to kick off with the first video of the week from my first Ramble this month, which was this one, Civi11. I did feature one of his videos earlier in this list, his review of Mars, which was that janky Duke Nukem ripoff. Very much his bread and butter, that kind of thing. But he also does a lot of coverage of Doom-related stuff. And, of course, it is very much of interest to me. And what this is, this video, it's called Classic Doom Mods. And it covers some of the total conversion mods that people have made over the years for Classic Doom. So basically, when modders have taken the game and they've replaced all the graphics, they've made all their own custom levels, all the weapons, you know, their own music and sound effects, everything. They even changed the menus and stuff like that, and tried to turn Doom into a completely different game. So what we're seeing here is an Aliens-inspired game, a total conversion, I should say. There's also Star Wars-inspired ones and a really, really good Batman game as well, which is featured in this video. And some of these are from in the really, really early days of Doom. So, of course, id Software quite keen to encourage people to modify the game. The WAD file format that Doom uses for its levels was very much designed with modification in mind, people having the ability to create their own levels and things, and used to great effect over the years, and is built into a really great community of people building awesome stuff on the top of original Doom, which of course we have seen a few examples of in this roundup. But if you want a bit of an introduction to the topic, and you want to kind of know when it first started, all those years ago when Doom was still new, this is a great introduction to it. So Classic Doom mods from Civi11, 33 minutes and 20 seconds long, and some incredible creativity on display here. Which is more than I can say for the next video, and that is not a commentary on the video abilities of its author, Super Jim, who is a good friend of mine. He currently has 688 subscribers, so if you like what you see, please do go and subscribe to his channel. He does some great game reviews and things, as well as some great commentary videos like this. And this is all about the new offering from the Oliver twins, so of course famous founders of Codemasters, my local game developer. Best known for the Dizzy games, of course, back in the day, although obviously Codemasters have gone on to do all sorts of fantastic things with the F1 license and the rally games and, Dirt Rally and stuff like that. But yeah, the Oliver twins are still occasionally pumping out games, and they seem to have lost the plot a bit because they've been very heavily pushing this remake of Ghost Hunters, which is like a reboot of an old 8-bit game that they made back in the day. On the old platforms of the time, which of course I think they are best known for. And this is a browser-based game, but they are heavily kind of pushing the fact that they've used AI in the creation of this, in all aspects of this, the sound, the graphics, even the gameplay. And it has not really a shining example of a fantastic classic game at all. As Jim points out, all sorts of inconsistencies and jankiness, all sorts of slop on display here. I mean, this is supposedly the best of what AI game development has to offer. And we've got inconsistent voices and character design and all sorts of weird stuff going on in the graphics and whatnot. As you might expect, of course, if you know anything at all about this. And just a bit unfortunate to see a big name like the Oliver twins associated with something like this. So wanted to draw that to people's attention. I thought this was a good look at the game. And of course, if you watch this video, it's only very short. What is it? 3 minutes, 54 seconds. Means you also don't have to play the game yourself to know what it's all about, which is very much doing you a huge favour, trust me. So that's that. AI broke my video game from Super Jim, 3 minutes and 54 seconds, a look at Ghost Hunters, the new AI-generated game from the Oliver twins of Codemasters fame. Now, moving back onto hardware for a moment, RetroBrite. I think everyone in this world knows a bit about RetroBrite by this point. Of course, the process of using peroxide in one form or another to take yellowed old plastics like you would have with old games consoles and computers and stuff, and restore them to their pearly white glory. Now, there has been some scientific experimentation on this process over the years, and this video from Tech Tangents, I think, is a very good example. So this is a Sega Dreamcast console that Shelby from Tech Tangents actually retrobrited 10 years ago. And he's done a very scientific test using the same filming setup, the same lighting, the same camera settings, everything, to compare side by side the yellowing that has happened, the re-yellowing that has happened to this console over the past 10 years, and also try to examine like the damage that's happened to the plastic. Is there any weakening of the plastic as a result of the retrobriting process, which I think is of great interest to pretty much everyone who has ever considered this or indeed taken part in this process, as I have. I have seen the re-yellowing myself firsthand with some of the stuff that I have retrobrited over the years, so it's interesting to see that being kind of reproduced here. I have a lot of respect for Shelby. I think he makes fantastic videos. I think he puts a lot of work and a lot of thought into them, so when he has something to say on a topic like this, I think it's important that people listen. But also, you know, a great video, very well put together, as we would expect from Tech Tangents. RetroBrite damages plastics, 10-year test, 15-minute, 52-second video. Has also made the list. And finally, another shout out for Rob Smith. And I only mention this again because, I mean, obviously it made my video of the week in last week's Ramble. But this boing ball, this levitating boing ball project is a really, really well-known project of his. And if you've ever seen him at any shows or anything, he always has these on display. Of course, you can make your own as well. It's all 3D printed with this levitating base and stuff. And he has improved upon the original design. So, of course, the boing ball, the iconic boing ball from the Amiga, the demo with the ball bouncing around and rotating in 3 dimensions. He built a real-life version of that, 3D printed. It levitates, it spins, but it always bothered him that it wasn't spinning on the right axis. The one in the original demo is kind of tilted diagonally as it rotates. And Rob's always just span just on the horizontal axis because of the actual hardware that he used to build the original version of that. So he decided to come up with a design that would spin more accurately, more correctly to the original demo. And this video just shows that process and how that was designed and how that was built. And I mention this mainly because a lot of people will have seen this thing and will be familiar with it. And, you know, it's cool to see him revisiting the design and making a new and improved version. Some 3D printing skills on show here, as well as all the usual stuff that you would expect. So levitating Amiga boing ball for the 40th anniversary. One of many big anniversaries that we have, of course, covered this year on Reese Rambles. The Atari ST, the Amiga, Windows 95, and I can't remember. Monkey Island, was that one of them? Yeah, quite a few off the top of my head. But there we go, 22 minutes and 17 seconds. Really great video, again, from Rob. And that's that. That's my videos of the year. I'm not claiming that those are the best videos on YouTube this year. They're just the videos that I happened to watch that I featured in my videos of the week here on Reese Rambles over the course of the year. So I hope you enjoy checking those out. There is a link to the complete playlist down below, which includes all of those, as well as the couple of videos that I mentioned from my own channel that I thought would be noteworthy and relevant. And finally, again, I just want to give a shout out to Sub 5000 TV, again from Dudley of Yesterzine. All sorts of small and upcoming channels featured in this. A really nice long YouTube playlist. Again, if you're looking for something else to watch over the Christmas break, this will officially be released, Dudley has told me, at midnight on Christmas Eve. And when it is, I will add the link down below as well as, of course, publicising it on my social media and stuff. So do keep an eye out for that. Something a little bit different. There's a mix of all sorts of things from all sorts of different channels and little links and adverts and things that people have put together to kind of link it all together as well. But that's all I have for you for this ramble. I will probably be doing another one by the end of the year, so I won't wish you a new year. But I hope you enjoy this Christmas and festive season, no matter what you're up to. Hopefully my horrible face fungus has gone by now, and hopefully I've, not by now, by then, of course, by Christmas Day. Hopefully I've done a good enough job of concealing it in this video, so you don't have to sit there and stare at it. But that's all I've got for you. Reese Rambles goes out every Friday night at 2 minutes to midnight on my second YouTube channel, youtube.com/Reese Rambles, as well as the major podcast platforms. You can listen to it, you can watch it. All the features, all the stories that I feature in Reese Rambles are linked down in the description every single week. I'm going a bit insane. I've been recording all day. I haven't eaten yet, so I'm going to go. Thank you ever so much for joining me, and of course for all of your support this year as well. Do go and check out Control-Alt-Reese, my main channel. And if you've liked what you've heard, subscribe to my podcast, Reese Rambles. I'm going now. Thanks a lot. Bye.